to another, and evolution would have had to have created a outrageous number, millions upon millions upon millions of proteins. How is it that evolution, it's plausible to believe then that mutation designed proteins when it
It's
overwhelmingly causes a
changes
destructive
in the
effect to their
nucleotide
function? That's a
polymorphisms that's
profound problem
detrimental,
for.
negative. Just another reason why forward evolution, ape to man evolution, is implausible. And they can even nitpick at a few random lines of evidence that they think is evidence for evolution. But when you look at the bigger picture, an example like you just provided, Neff, that's it. It destroys their fairy tale.
It does, and 80% of the proteins between humans and chimps are different by at least one amino acid, often several. So.
Right.
Then evolution would have, all these changes would have had to have been done by mutations, and
which degrade,
right.
Yep. And if mutations in those SNPs, the single nucleotide polymorphisms, is leading to degraded proteins, how do these proteins evolve to begin with?
Exactly. Why is a mechanism for damage to the function of proteins a mechanism for their design?
Exactly.
It doesn't make any sense. That's like saying, taking automobile parts and smashing them with a ball peen hammer is going to assemble them into a Volvo. It doesn't make sense.
Well, and that's the thing, is all their examples are always examples of degeneration, degradation, and he was looking to a trade-off, right? Like maybe there's some adaptation here and some deleterious effects there, but the beneficials, which are always reductive, of course, the adaptation it can't be sustained with all the information loss, with all the changes that are degenerate. I mean, there's really no. And they want us to believe that a bacteria-like organism gave rise over countless generations to all the life we have here through the destruction of proteins, like you said, and that's going to build the proteins, or this is going to build the genome, this is going to take the bacteria to whale. I mean, it's philosophy, as you always brilliantly point out, Neff.
Yeah, it's philosophy substituted as science. And so, I mean, if 80% of the proteins in humans and chimps are different, then that would be all by mutation. How in the world did humans and chimps not go extinct by having 80% of their proteins altered by mutation? You got to be kidding me.
Right.
Like a pistol to your head.
And that's why they need to. And if he's listening, Mike, I want to say he's very pleasant to talk to. We both talked to him. Nice guy. I'd love to see him get converted. I'd have an infinite number of conversations with him just to have his eyes open. I think hopefully he learned a thing today. I mean, he did admit that he did learn a thing or two, but actually I lost my train of thought there, Neff. Oh, right. Yeah. With the proteins, with the degeneration of our genome, there's no way to build it to begin with. It falls on its face.
That's right. And I noticed he had been paying attention to your arguments from created heterozygosity, because he mentioned it and shook his head. Yeah, I know what you're going to say, created heterozygosity. So apparently he's been paying attention to what you've said, and that's a good thing. So maybe that'll help him.
Well, and that's the thing, because even when they pay attention, and he's a nice guy, I'm sure he is, but they still have that basic assumption that evolution is true, and therefore all these DNA differences are the result of mutation, right? They have to conclude that they're all the result of mutation. But obviously, according to our model and our belief, they would be created DNA differences. And of course, the rare alleles that arose after Babel, those would be mutation related. But the allele frequencies that are in abundance, the ones that are common, those would be created. Therefore, arguments like Adam and Eve would have experienced inbreeding and these mutation related arguments, it's not taking into consideration that we don't have that basic assumption. Our genome is not riddled with DNA differences that are mutations. No, these were created DNA differences. Why wouldn't God do that, Neff? Because if God didn't do that, we're going to reproduce by cloning. doesn't really make much sense. And that's the thing. I asked him, I said, what percentage of the genome do you believe is functional? Because this is crucial with genetic entropy. And he had to admit 12%. Because we all know if the vast majority of DNA is functional, that really, really speeds up the degeneration problem.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right. That makes perfect sense. If evolution is if mutation is a mechanism for evolution, why is it that the science and medical journals discuss almost universally a negative effect when they observe the effect of a mutation? The theory doesn't jive with observable science. What we actually see. You have to ignore all the science. You have to ignore what the medical journals are saying in order to keep believing in the 20th and 21st century that mutation is a designer. It's an antiquated 19th century. Well, it's a mid 20th century idea, 1950s, 60s, but it's just been buried by a mountain of scientific research into mutation.
Well, another thing that really destroys their ape to man evolution is linkage blocks. I mean, we know linkage groups, linkage blocks. We have a lot of very large, like I think anywhere between 10,000 to millions of nucleotides, and we have these blocks that are broken up through recombination during meiosis, recombination gene conversion, right? It shuffles them, it scrambles them. But we have so many large linkage blocks that if evolution was true and we were evolving for millions and millions of years, all these rounds of recombination, gene conversion should have scrambled up all these linkage blocks. But we have so many large linkage blocks suggesting we only came about 6,000 years ago. We've only been experiencing recombination and gene conversion for thousands of years, not millions of years.
Right. And that's a shocking thing for somebody who believes in millions of years evolution to learn, if they're willing to accept what science actually shows us about it. I noticed he mentioned it seems like to me he was talking about tandem repeats in the DNA. He didn't use the term, but he mentioned stretches of DNA which are duplicates, it seems, or extremely similar in one species or another. And he said that the genome is a big a spaghetti monster. It's a big spaghetti. I don't remember the term he used. It's a big mess. He said it's a mess. And so he was referring to large blocks of repetitive DNA. He's talking about tandem repeats there. And
is that what he was talking about with the spaghetti?
I think so. He didn't really
100% certain what, because we were talking about really sure function, and then all of a sudden he started talking about. It almost sounded like he was agreeing that the genome is more functional, because he said before he started saying that, he said, this might be a reason why I won't be an atheist for too long. And I thought he was about to talk about that there is growing evidence that the genome is functional. So that part I wasn't 100% certain what he meant by that.
Yeah. I wasn't either. He wasn't very specific. I can only assume he was talking about large stretches of duplicate DNA or tandem repeats, because he was talking about junk DNA at the time. But they've discovered function in some of these tandem repeats.
Right, absolutely.
And so we just don't have a reason to believe that they're junk. And he said, we hear evolutionists repeat this same thing that he said, this argument that the majority of, you pointed out that over 80% of the genome is transcribed by polymerase, and I think it's more like 86% now. But he said, well, you said that implies function, and he said no. But what's the logic behind that? Really, in believing that since it's transcribed into RNA, and we know that RNAs are bits of information that have numerous functions in the cell, and that's what the RNA does. It's a string of information sent out into the cell to do a function, right? So what's the logic in believing that although the vast majority of the DNA is transcribed into RNA, that we should believe for some reason that it's functionless? Why would the cell evolve in such a way that it constantly fills itself with garbage if those were junk anyway? Couldn't evolution stop that process? And if There's no logic really behind that. There's no reason behind believing
Absolutely
that.
no reason.
It's
No.
just something they've got to cling on to keep on holding on to the junk DNA paradigm. But science is continuously discovering more and more function for these RNAs, and it just shows that there isn't any reason to believe the majority of them are junk. We have all the reason in the world to believe they're all functional for some reason.
Well, it's you hit the nail on the head because I asked him that exact same question. I said, okay, fine. If all of this, and you're right, it's probably more like 86%. I mean, the data just accumulates more and more every day. You're absolutely right, brother. And if it's being transcribed, okay, into RNA, but not really functional, there's some activity, but it's not really important activity. Is pretty well what he's saying. If that was truly true, like you said, why would the cell even bother with it at all? It sounds wasteful use of resources. Natural selection should have eliminated this junk long ago, but it hasn't. So it really doesn't. It doesn't make much sense. I mean, that junk DNA. I even asked him. I said, "Do you not agree that a lot of those regions are telling the product, the protein, when and how to be produced, right? Like the non-coding regions are interacting and working with the protein coding regions. I always think of it this way. The non-protein regions are kind of like a play. Let's say you go see a play, you got the actors and everybody on the front. Okay, that's your coding genes, protein coding genes doing all the work. But behind the scenes, you got the non-protein coding DNA doing all the work behind the scenes, right? The lighting, you got the writers, you got, they're all working together. The genome is nested, it's overlapping, it's highly functional. And to deny that is only because, like we said earlier, the evolutionist has to deny it, or else they're admitting that genome degradation is a huge problem on a genome that's fully functional.
That's right. That's exactly right. Looks like we have a very young monk in the place. He's got his monk gear on. He's reciting, chanting the scriptures. Hey, Guzman.
Guzman,
Yeah,
Guzman in the house. How you doing, brother? Good to see you.
Good evening. Good evening.
Hello.
Hello.
Good
Good
evening.
evening, everybody. Brenda. Guzman.
Yes.
Neff, just 1 second, and Brenda, you go ahead. I'm going to just put myself on mute for a little while, Neff, just because I finished that debate. Wanted to jump in here and talk a little bit to you, brother.
Okay.
I just have a few things to do around the house that I've been meaning to get to. So
no problem. Okay.
Seems kind of weird.
So, Nev, how are you doing?
Oh, getting by, I guess. How about yourself, Guzman?
Awesome.
That's good.
I want to thank you again for taking the time to come onto my channel and talk for a good hour and a half.
Oh, yeah, that's fine. I enjoyed it. Thanks for asking me to have a chat with you. I love talking about these kinds of things. Creation, evolution, the Bible, Christianity, atheism, all that stuff I get a kick out of talking about all that stuff, studying it. It's really, it's something that is, yep, I'm sorry, go ahead.
You had a talk on Guzman's channel?
Yes, just a few days ago.
Oh, okay. I'd be willing to talk to you, Guzman, at some time.
Sounds fair.
Yeah, you can hit me up. My email should be bvanasan@gmail.com. It should be on my home, on my YouTube channel. It ought to be. If not, you can look it up.
All right.
bvonahsen@gmail.com. So what was the topic of your discussion?
We basically covered. You want to talk about it, Neff?
No. Go ahead. I didn't know you were going to. Yeah.
No problem. We basically talked about the main topics: genetic entropy, junk DNA, the phenotypic plasticity, things like that. We also talked a little bit about uniformitarianism, and
So what is junk DNA?
Junk DNA. If you're gonna ask me, I'm not a geneticist, but I think that the definition of junk DNA would be DNA that is no longer used in the body, DNA in the genome that is not non-coding. It's not used for anything anymore. It's sort of vestigial.
Yeah, are there any geneticists who equate the term junk DNA with non-coding DNA? Can you name
I'm not.
one?
I'm not sure if there's geneticists. I saw, like, if you look on my documentary I produced, it's about 50 minutes. Near the end, there's an evolutionist with a very popular scientific YouTube channel. I used to watch him sometimes, and he talked about this. He has two videos on junk DNA. One of them he covers before the ENCODE project, saying that around 80% of our DNA is junk, and then after the ENCODE project, where he says that the ENCODE has released their studies and has found that only 20% or so or less is actually junk DNA. I uh, I watched
26.3%.
26.3%. Okay. Well, you can check the video out. I'll send it to you if you want. Only if you want, but you know. Am I coming through clear on the connection?
Yeah, you
Yes, I can
sound
hear you
fine.
just fine.
All right, awesome. So I'm gonna find that video real quickly.
So the point is that there is DNA which exists, which has no function,
There is?
right? Yeah. We
Who,
just
how
said
do we know that?
26%.
No,
26%.
well, 26% is of unknown function. They don't know
Yeah.
that it has no function. They don't know of any function.
Yeah. That's
Right.
non-functional.
Right, and the reason we have now 86% is known function is because they keep studying it and finding more function. At first it was less, and then it's more, and now it's 80. You know, if 10, 15 years ago it was well, just 5 or 7 years ago they thought it was around 80%. Now they're saying 86%. Scientists are speculating it's going to go up from there. So they keep finding function.
Right, but the null hypothesis is that DNA of unknown function is junk DNA.
Well, that's the paradigm, but the evidence just keeps arguing against that because they keep discovering more and more function for DNA they once thought was functionless. That's the point. They keep on finding
Yeah,
more and more function.
that's still the case that there's a lot of DNA in a lot of organisms that has no function.
Well, they don't know that it has no function.
Yeah,
They know that they don't know the function. They don't
uh,
say it has no function. They don't
well,
know of the function.
well, yeah, but as I said,
There's a big difference.
the null hypothesis is that the DNA for which there is no known function is junk DNA.
Right. That's the problem with their theory is they keep finding function for what they've been saying all along is junk.
That's not a problem. That's how
Of
science
course
is
it is.
done. You don't assume
No.
that you know something before you know it,
Then why are you calling it junk when they don't know the function?
because
You'd
it's
have to know it's junk.
non-functional.
No, they don't. Look, Brenda, let me explain something to you. They don't know what the function is. They don't know that it has no function. They don't know what function it might have. They haven't verified by extensive study that it absolutely has no function. They just haven't discovered any function for it.
Yeah, and so
Right.
the null hypothesis states that is junk DNA.
That doesn't verify it's
Unless
junk.
this is just logic. This is just an
No.
application of science and logic. If you don't know its function, you have no reason to presuppose that it has a function.
Well, but
You're presupposing that it has a function without any evidence that it has a function.
no, Brenda, what's happening here is you're presupposing it has no function, even though it hasn't been verified to have no
That's
function.
the null hypothesis.
Listen, Brenda,
That's how the logic of
repeating,
science works.
repeating the term null hypothesis doesn't change anything. The fact is, it's you that presume that it has no function, though it has not been verified to have no function.
That's called
Right.
the null hypothesis.
It doesn't matter what they call it. They could call it purple face eaters. It
but
doesn't matter.
The logic is that you cannot
I understand
presume
their
something is functional until you can show that it's functional.
But the problem with that, let me explain the problem, is they continue to find function for DNA that they've previously assumed had no function because of what you're talking about. And that's been happening over and over, year after year, for quite a while now. So the inference that we get is because we keep finding function in it, it's like we will continue to find more and more function in what is called junk DNA. And this argues against the idea that we should be assuming that it is
That's
functionless just because we don't know the function.
that's just begging the question.
No,
The
it's
the
not.
null hypothesis is the logical application of the scientific method, and you presupposing that
Okay.
that functionless DNA is junk DNA is somehow has a function is simply begging the question.
No, no, Brenda, you're just refusing the scientific inference that we get from
No,
the
no, I'm
continued
using
discovery.
logic. I'm using
No,
logic and the scientific method.
from
This
the
is how
continued
science is
discovery,
done.
Brenda, you're just refusing the evidence from the continued discovery of genetic function in this allegedly junk DNA. That's all.
The fact that they can sometimes find function for a
Frequently.
function for non-functional DNA does not you are not justified therefore in assuming that all non-functional DNA has a function.
We're not assuming all.
That's what you
We're
just
assuming.
said.
No,
That's what you just said.
no, I didn't, Brenda.
Your argument to me.
I said the number. Brenda, hold on. Let me finish, please. I didn't say all. I said it implies that we will continue to find more and more function in
No,
what is allegedly called junk DNA.
that's not a valid inference. The
That-
fact
that
that
is a
the
valid
fact that you can take the fact that you can sometimes find some DNA which has previously been thought of as non-functional DNA and find functions for it, it does not imply that you will continue to find functions for non-functional DNA.
But Brenda,
That's not a valid inference.
Brenda, that's exactly illogical and the opposite of the truth, I'm afraid. Because they continue. Brenda, it's because they continue to find function in what is known, was claimed to be junk DNA. Let me explain this simple thing to you. 45 years ago, evolutionist scientists were claiming the vast majority of the DNA, virtually everything that didn't code for a protein, which is only 3% or so of the DNA, was junk. Now,
that's false. That's a lie. That's a lie, and you know it's a lie.
Brenda,
you
that's
know
the
it's a
truth.
lie. That's
Brenda,
not
please
what they
don't talk
claimed.
over me.
They
I'll
claimed
allow
it was
you to talk.
functional. They
Brenda,
claimed it was non-functional.
Don't
They didn't say it
continuously
was
talk
junk.
over me. Brenda, please don't keep talking over me. You don't have your say on the mic, but we can talk back and forth. So this idea that the majority of the DNA was junk was held to came up from the early 1960s and was held to throughout the 60s, throughout the 70s, throughout the 80s, into the 90s, and only began to be questioned by even secular scientists in the 1990s. That's when they started saying, wait a minute, we're starting to find function in all this DNA. So in the early, when the claim of junk DNA was formed, which was in the early 1960s, since then they've discovered 86% of it is transcribed as by RNA, and lots and lots and lots of it is functional. So by using logic, we have no reason to assume that what's left is also going to be junk, because we've moved from 3% to 86% being transcribed into RNA since the early 1960s. Hey, Gman, how's it going, buddy?
So your account, even if I accept your account as being true, which I do not, it still does not follow that because they have found uses for some non-functional DNA, that they will continue to find uses for non-functional DNA. That's not a valid inference.
That makes no sense whatsoever. G-Man, how you doing tonight,
It's how
buddy?
logic works. It's how logic works. The fact that you've found some uses for X doesn't mean you will find all of X has uses.
That's actually the opposite. That's actually the opposite of what's logical. Let's see if G-Man's in
that's
there.
not true.
G-Man, how you doing, brother?
I know.
I'm all right. I'm just listening to the conversation. How you doing, Guzman? Standing for truth.
Good to see you.
Brenda.
G-Man and I go back a long way. I've known G-Man for about, 8 years? 7, 8 years? 8 or more, probably. 8 or more years. He's pretty much an old schooler YouTuber, too. He's been around for a long time.
So perhaps you have a better argument for creationism What
Well, I think
what reliable, predictable, verifiable, and falsifiable results has creationism ever made?
I think Guzman wanted to chime
Can
in.
I can I actually have a conversation with
Yeah,
Brenda about that?
absolutely, sure. Go. Let Guzman say something. He was trying to say something real quick, G-Man. Let Guzman say something real quick, because he was trying to interrupt and jump in there, and then you can have the floor, buddy.
Really quickly, I just want to say, hey, G-Man, how are you doing? You told me that you feel tired, but anyway. Brenda, how do scientists develop a hypothesis in your opinion?
Based on observations.
Excuse
Based on
me.
observations. You observe something, you ask questions, form a hypothesis, test the hypothesis, and then and repeat that process until you can come up with a scientific theory that makes verifiable, falsifiable predictions.
Okay. Now, how has this hypothesis been formed for the junk DNAs? The hypothesis that you've named. What's it called again?
What's what called?
The hypothesis.
It's just non-functional. It's just non-functional DNA, and
Okay, but
some of that DNA is non-functional. It's just left over from DNA that's been inserted by viruses, DNA that's non-functional due to mutations, and various other processes. There's DNA in organisms that has no use whatsoever.
So, is the hypothesis that you named a few minutes ago an actual scientific hypothesis that has been drawn by the scientific community?
What that there exists a non-coding DNA?
Yes. What's
DNA that doesn't? It's just an observation. We observe that there is in fact DNA that has no function.
You kept on referencing to a hypothesis for this. I don't know if I misheard something along the lines, but the null hypothesis or something.
The null hypothesis is an assumption. Is usually you have a hypothesis and then the null hypothesis. Okay. Typically, if you assume that something, if you think that something has a function, the null hypothesis would be that it has no function, right? It's a term from statistics.
Okay, now I understand. All right.
I mean, yeah. So if you are testing a group of people for in say epidemiology, you would assume if you're testing for a disease or something, you would take as the null hypothesis the absence of for instance the virus or something. Okay. You would assume, the null hypothesis is usually the contrary of the hypothesis that you're looking for.
But the null hypothesis doesn't apply anymore because they've moved from 3% to 86% being transcribed by RNA.
No, there's a large amount of DNA in organisms, in all organisms, which has no function, and
they don't know that.
Is the consequence? Well, the null hypothesis states it would have no function.
They don't know that it has no function.
Yes, that's what the null hypothesis would be. You don't assume function. You don't assume function before you can before you know about it. And
right,
you're
but
begging the question. You're begging the question by assuming that it has function.
No, Brenda, you're
begging the question.
You're refusing to accept the historical fact that so much of the genome is now known to code for RNA that was not known to do anything 20, 30, 40 years ago.
I understand. Again,
right. Okay.
Again,
G-Man, what's going on, brother?
The fact that you found some function for junk DNA, it does not imply that all junk DNA will have a function. That's not a valid inference.
Brenda, I can't help you with that logic, that kind of logic.
That's actual logic. That's how it works.
What's going on, G-Man?
How you doing, Neff? I got a little bit of experience with Brenda. You mind if I have a chit chat with Brenda?
Sure.
But I don't necessarily want to talk about. A junk DNA.
Okay,
how you doing, Brenda?
What do you want to discuss, G-Man?
Well, I want to prove to you.
I haven't spoken to you in like over a year, maybe 2 years.
Yeah, I think the last time me and you was in the room was in True Empiricism's room when he did Bring It Evolutionists.
Yeah. I humiliated him and you.
Mm. Okay, so I'm assuming that you believe that evolution's science, and you believe that intelligent design doesn't have anything scientific to back it up, right?
Well, intelligent design is a religious belief. It was declared a religious belief by the proponents of intelligent design in court.
Okay, that's great. So,
No.
okay, so you're saying that intelligent design is a religious belief. There's no science to back up intelligent
Yeah,
design,
it's
or
it's
the
not
fact that
science.
let,
It's
let
not
me
science
clarify.
because
Let me
it's not.
clarify what I'm talking about, because if you speak ahead of me, I'm going to ask you what I said, and you're going to look silly. So just allow me to finish, all right? Because we tend to have this problem with this. Okay. Um, so according to you, there's no scientific evidence whatsoever that living organisms are designed or comes from other living beings or other living organisms, right? According to you, there's no scientific data for that whatsoever, right?
Yeah, because it's non-falsifiable. It's not science.
Okay, cool. So science deals with observation and experimentation, right?
Yeah, it's observation, hypothesis formation, testing, experimental testing, and eventually, if you're lucky, you can develop a
I have an
theory.
experiment that I would like for you to try. You ready for it?
I'm listening.
Okay, great. I would like for you to go have sex with somebody. Now I'm assuming that because I'm trying to be respectful to you today, okay? So I don't want to get into the whole thing about like the man and the woman thing and whatnot. So I'm just gonna say that you're a woman, okay? Why don't you go find
Yeah,
a man and have sex with that man and see what happens? Do you believe that if you have sex with a man that you're gonna have that you're gonna produce offspring?
I'm pretty sure I won't.
Okay, are you a woman?
Yes, I am.
Okay, so if you have sex with a man, you will not have offspring.
That's correct.
Okay, why is that?
Because I don't have ovaries or a
Oh,
uterus.
okay, so if a man has sex with a woman, is it a is it probable or likely that she will get pregnant?
Yeah, I suppose there's a probability. I don't know what it would be.
Okay, cool. It doesn't matter what it's going to be, but we know that if a man who is an intelligent, living thing, and a woman who's an intelligent living thing, they have sex, they have children, right? Uh, what is that child a result of?
It's a result of the union of a sperm and egg.
Right. But would you consider the male to be an intelligent agent?
Yes, he is. So is the woman.
Would you consider the woman to be an intelligent
Yes,
agent?
yes.
Would you agree that the offspring would be an intelligent agent?
A fertilized egg is not an intelligent agent. It's just an egg. But eventually, it would develop, hopefully, into a baby, and a baby is an intelligent agent. Yes.
Yeah. So you got an intelligent man, you got an intelligent woman who has sex, and they produce an intelligent child. Now, where did the man come from? The man came from two other intelligent people, right? We can
Yes.
experiment that way. We can see that, right?
Yes.
Okay, great. Earlier, you said that there's no scientific evidence for intelligent design, that it was a religious
Yeah.
proposition.
Yeah.
It is
Correct.
not a
Yes.
religious proposition to say that life comes from life and that intelligent agents come from life. All right. Especially when we're
Um,
talking about human beings, which is what I'm talking about. So, can you explain to me how that's not scientific?
Because what you're committing is the composition division fallacy. The fact that there are intelligent agents does not mean that they're necessarily had to be created by intelligent agents. They could have been
Can you
created
explain
by
to me?
They could have been created by a non-intelligent natural process.
Can you explain? Okay, great. Can you show me a human being that was created, or that's? Oh, I'm sorry, not created. Can you tell me how a human being came to be without intelligence being involved in it whatsoever?
By natural selection.
And explain to me how that happens. Give
By
me an example
evolution.
how that happens.
By descent with modification by means of natural selection, or otherwise called evolution.
Okay. So show me a human being how
Complex
that's happened to. Show me a
complex
human being that's happened to.
com- uh, complex organisms arose from from simpler organisms in the history of evolution, right? So we have at the beginning we had just RNA soup, and eventually formed into cellular life, which divided into prokaryotes and eukaryotes. We are eukaryotes. And
Brenda,
sex,
I don't think you understand my question, Brenda.
I do understand
when we're talking about human, well, you haven't given me an example of a human being that's come about that way. If you're referring to abiogenesis or the primordial soup, where the lightning hit it, and you got your first living cell, that's not a human being. I would like for you, Brenda, to give me an example of a human being coming about through the process of natural selection. I'd like to hear this.
I wasn't referring to abiogenesis. I was referring to evolution. Evolution states that life arose from simpler life, right? So we began as very simple, single-celled or life, which eventually became more and more complex, and we diverged.
You're moving a goalpost, Brenda. Brenda,
No,
you're moving a goalpost, Brenda. Yes, you are, because I asked you about how does a human being. No, I asked you how do you get a human being without an intelligent agent being involved? Do you know what a human being is?
Yes.
Okay, so how do you get a human being from natural selection?
I was telling you.
Okay, so please explain that. Explain to me how no intelligent agents are involved. Because even if you go the route of a test tube baby or artificial insemination, that still involves an intelligence. So please explain that to me.
So eukaryotes, which is what we are, what a great majority of life on Earth is eukaryotic. Sex was invented by the eukaryotes, that phylum, right? So that's how sex originated. And it's been carried ever since. Our ancestors, our non-human ancestors, engaged in sex, just like
Brenda.
So you see, I was skipping backwards. You were going backwards to, for instance, my parents and then their parents. But I can go backwards to the progenitors of humans, which were non-human primates, which also had sex, and their progenitors.
Okay.
Go further back up the tree and go all the way up to the division between prokaryotes and eukaryotes. It was eukaryotic life which invented sex, and that led to
Brenda,
all the way
Brenda,
down the line.
I asked you about human beings. I didn't ask you about an animal that evolved over time and became a human. I didn't ask you that. You're moving the goalpost. Hold on a minute, Brenda. Hold on a minute, Brenda. You're moving the goalpost, and I think it's obvious that you have to try to. You know what? If you're going to go the route and say that if we're going to start at the first living cell, and that living cell becomes a multi-cell. Hold on a minute, Brenda. Hold on. If you're going to go the route of a cell becoming a multi-cell, and going through all of its changes through a long period of time. Before the cell came to be, there was a primordial soup. We know that according to your theory, lightning hit this soup and the first living cell came about. All right. That's abiogenesis. I was right about what I said. What you have not been able to give an example on is how do you get a human being via natural selection? What you have to resort to doing is going, back when we were plants or at the plant stage, that's how we did it. No, I asked you about a human being. I mean, unless you're saying that plants are humans.
What I was doing was explaining to you the origin of sex, which is where I thought you were going. So I was honestly trying to answer you as at the root, at the basis of your question. I was not trying to move the goalposts. If you thought I was moving the goalposts, I'm sorry. I apologize.
Okay, your apologize. Okay. Your apology is accepted. So let me be a little bit more clear. When I say a human being, I'm saying me and you, Guzman, NephilimFree, Standing for Truth, the people that are watching this. How exactly do human beings come about without an intelligence being involved? Because I'm just going by what you said earlier, unless you want to correct yourself. When you said that intelligent design is not something that you would consider scientific, that you would consider to be religious. And I know that's not true because I know that you can't get a human being without an intelligence being involved.
There's no intelligence involved when two people have sex. The fact that they are intelligent does not mean that the resulting child was intelligently designed.
Well, we have profound.
Okay, so let me get this straight. Neff, I'm almost finished, Neff, because I wanted to make sure I understand this correctly. So let me get this straight. You're saying that a man doesn't have to think. And now I know
That's
that
been my
children are probably going to
experience. It's
watch
been
this, so
my
I got to be
experience.
careful with what I got to say here.
It's
I got to
been
be
my
careful with the
experience,
children watching
G-Man,
this.
that men rarely think. Yes.
So here's the thing,
Especially when the little
Brenda, I'm
head
not
is
done yet,
involved.
Brenda. You're putting words in my mouth, Brenda. Just hold on a minute.
I'm just making a joke, G-Man. Just relax. I'm making a joke.
Oh, okay, great.
Yeah,
Well, I'm just trying to stay on my train of thought.
My joke is that men rarely think, especially when the little head is involved.
Okay, yeah. So when the little head is involved, you're saying that a man doesn't.
Right, Brenda. Look, this.
It's just a joke.
We'd like for these hangouts to be acceptable for kids. Okay.
It is.
Yeah. So I have to be careful with what I say here. So here's the thing, Brenda. You're trying to say that no intelligence is involved in sex yet we have something in our schools called sex education. Here's my thing, Brenda, about what you said earlier. I believe that you are sadly mistaken, and I mean that in a respectful way. All right. I believe that you're sadly mistaken when you're saying that intelligent design is just religious or is religious and has no science involved with it whatsoever. Yeah. Science deals with observation and experimentation. Yes. And anybody with a kindergarten, anyone who's a kindergarten can perform a scientific experiment. All right.
Yes.
And particularly this one, when it comes to life coming about through life or an intelligent agent. All right. Sex proves that. You can't explain to me how you get human beings without an intelligence being involved. You just can't do it. So just be careful when you're having a conversation with Neff and these guys saying that. Hold on a minute. Just be careful when you try to sit there and you try to presuppose that intelligent design is religious. You said I haven't shown you, and I did.
Yeah. No, you didn't.
I actually showed you how if you go to my parents, how they produce me, and if you go to their
Did
parents,
they design you?
Hold on a minute, Brenda. Hold on a minute. If you go to their parents came about bringing them about. All right.
Right.
You haven't proven. You haven't shown, scientifically speaking, on how an intelligence is not involved with bringing about people.
G-Man, the fact that people are intelligent and have sex, it doesn't follow that the resulting child is a consequence of intelligent design. It doesn't follow.
Mom and dad doesn't have any intelligence when they had when they planned to have their children. Listen to me, Brenda. Listen to me very carefully here. Mom and dad, when they planned to have their children,
right?
Their children did not come about via intelligent design. Totally understand that, Brenda. That is false. That is false, and that is and that is horrible. Matter of fact, what you're talking about right now is not even science. That's an atheist presupposition. Anyway, I'm done.
No, this is G-Man. G-Man, I'd like to have further conversations with you sometime, if you'd like, on your channel or on mine. Anyway, the fact that two agents are intelligent does not mean that the product of their sexual union is a product of intelligent design.
Can't have sex without intelligence, Brenda.
Yes, you can.
You can't.
Lots of animals without very much intelligence at all have sex every single day.
Go find a brain dead person and ask them to have sex with you, and then get back to me on that one. All right.
There are plenty of animals on this planet that have sex that have little or no intelligence, G-Man.
Well,
Brenda. No, Brenda.
The process of
you need to go pick up a book. Anyway, go ahead, Neff.
The process of reproduction is an astonishing example of intelligent design. It's so incredibly complex. I mean, it really, down at the molecular scale, is just absolutely unbelievably complex.
Yeah, I understand.
One of the things that is very complex about it that I find remarkable is that the female in the eustachian tubes has all these little cilia, and these little cilia beckon the male cells to keep on following the path they inch them along. They help them along. They help them along by swishing from one direction to the other.
Yeah.
And those are amazing. If you've ever seen a 3D cutaway of the inside of the arrangement of these complex proteins that make up the hair of a cilia.
Yeah.
You see how? Please let me finish. incredibly complex they really are, even though they're minute. They're really astonishing. Just things as small as a cilia does
May I comment?
make. Hold on. Things as small as a cilia provide so much reason to believe in design. It's just not funny.
Complexity does not equal design. By what criteria can you discern design from non-design? What criteria do you use to determine design from non-design?
Well, when complexity gets to a certain point, it provides an inference of design, and everybody understands this because nobody would pick up a chunk of. Let me finish.
What's the criteria? Criteria?
Brennan, you have to let me finish. Nobody would pick up a chunk of granite and say, "Oh, that looks designed," but anybody would pick up a pocket watch or a child's toy, and obviously infer design is remarkably simple as they are compared to biological systems.
Is a chunk of granite designed by God?
Complexity does provide the inference of design.
Is a chunk of granite designed by God? Is the universe designed by God?
Absolutely.
So is there anything in our universe which was not designed by God?
Not unless it was a product of natural processes.
So
that
by what criteria?
You asked me a question, let me answer it. Not unless it's a product of natural causes that God set in motion, like rocks rolling downhill. It wasn't designed. That's just what happened because of the laws of physics that were designed by God.
So according to you, a rock is designed and a watch is designed. What criteria do you use to distinguish design from non-design when everything around you is designed?
The individual rock may not have been specifically designed, but rock itself was designed by God. So, but the point is, looking at it from a naturalist.
What's the criteria?
Looking at it from I'll explain. Looking at it from a naturalist's point of view, we would not say a rock is designed, right? But anybody would pick up a child's toy that comes in a McDonald's kiddie meal and immediately infer design just by looking at a small plastic toy comprised of no more than 4 parts.
What's the criteria? What's the criteria?
Well, one of the criteria is function. Biological things have function, and things that are not designed have no function. And we find all manner of function in biological systems. They're information-driven functions, in fact, and that implies design.
So function implies design?
Yes.
So anywhere you find function, you will find design.
Yes.
So rocks can have a function. So rocks are designed.
If a person appropriates a rock for a function, it could have a function.
Right.
But a rock sitting on a beach has no function.
Sure it can. I can pick it up and I can use it for something.
Well, that's when you appropriate it for a function.
Yeah. So anything can have a function, therefore everything is designed.
And you're an intelligent agent.
So you have not given me a useful criteria for distinguishing design from non-design.
Brenda,
try again.
You just acknowledged that an intelligent agent would be involved in appropriating the rock for a function.
Yes.
Okay, there we go.
Yes, that's your criteria is that everything is designed.
Function implies design. Non-functional does not imply design.
Anything can be put to a function if I desire. Therefore, everything is designed.
What causes function? What is it?
You know what, Neff? Brenda's totally correct. Brenda, you just made an interesting point. Actually, this did not trust me on this one, Neff. You made an interesting point. You said that everything is a design. So, Brenda, tell me something. Why doesn't the math support abiogenesis?
The math?
Yeah. Can you tell me what the odds are? Can you tell me what exactly the odds are of this complex chemicals existing before the first living life form existed here on Earth? When lightning hit this supposed this primordial soup and created the first living cell, can you explain to me what the math is? Since it had nothing to do with design whatsoever. All of this happened by chance or whatever. Could you give me the math, please?
It didn't happen by chance. It happened by according to the natural laws of the universe.
Okay, cool.
And
so you have a complex chemical soup, and lightning hit it. Can you explain to everyone that is watching this the math that is involved. Hey, NephilimFree, can you do me a favor, Neph? Could you look up, because I can't screen share, could you look up what the mathematical, what is the mathematical possibility of abiogenesis actually occurring? Because that wasn't designed. That happened because of natural processes.
I don't have that information, but I can provide for you statistical analysis of the odds that natural processes could produce a protein, which would be necessary for evolution. I'll give you that.
Right, but here's the thing, though, Brenda. You got to show that living cell came about. You see, a lot of people in your scientific community don't even consider that science. You don't agree on what the environment was for it to happen. I can simply ask you, what was the environment by the majority of the scientific community, and none of them got a complete answer with that.
Actually, we can show that under the correct conditions, DNA or RNA will just naturally self-assemble, given the
no. Show me the math.
Beginning. It isn't math.
Show me the math, Brenda.
It isn't math. It's chemistry.
Let me chime in. On this.
It's chemistry. It's not math. Are you serious?
Let me chime in on this.
Chemistry is not math. That is correct.
Brenda, what you've just said is scientifically false. RNA does not. Brenda, don't please. RNA does not form naturally. Man in a laboratory can create the right conditions to form small segments of RNA. RNA does not form naturally.
Yeah, it does.
Intelligent agency.
We've shown that it does. We've shown that it does.
Brenda, let me finish. We've shown that intelligent agents in a laboratory can create small segments of RNA. That's what we've shown. We have not shown nor know of a process whereby RNA itself will form.
That's just false.
No, Brenda, I've looked into it. You're wrong about that.
You're not. So if I create fire in the laboratory, does it follow that fire cannot occur naturally?
That's not even relative. Let me give you a little piece of information.
I'm an intelligent agent. I create fire in a laboratory.
Wait a minute. Why are you constantly moving the goalpost, Brenda?
Hold on. Let me give you a little piece of information.
Constantly moving the goalpost. That's what Brenda's doing.
Hold on, y'all, please. Okay. Let me share a little information for you. Okay, a typical protein is 300 or more amino acids in length. There are proteins in the human genome that have 34,500 amino acids in a specified order. There is one protein of that length. Many proteins are many thousands of amino acids long, such as the huge proteins involved in making big machines like the a ribosome. So, but let's just stick with a small to medium-sized protein of 300 amino acids. Now, consider that. To consider that, let's consider forming a minuscule protein of only 10 amino acids long. Now, there are no proteins that small in the human genome. No proteins 10 amino acids long. So let's just examine what it would take to get one smaller than any known protein. All right. So because there are 20 amino acids that can be used to make the protein in their specified order, then the odds of any given correct amino acid being in a chain that will provide a functional fold is 20 for the first amino acid. Now we get for the second amino acid, it's also 20, and for the third. So what we have is 20 times 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 20. Now, that's the odds that natural chemistry could order the amino acids in a minuscule 10 amino acid protein to get functional folds so it would be functional. You know what the mathematical odds of that are? It's going to blow your mind.
So this
one, let me finish now. 1 to 10 trillion 240 million.
Yeah.
That's for a protein smaller than any in the human genome.
Yeah, may I reply?
Now imagine trying to get one that's 300 amino.
Yeah, I understand.
NephilimFree, Guzman wants to get back in.
Who?
Guzman's trying to get back in.
Guzman, okay. There we go.
Yeah, evolution doesn't work by chance. So your analogy of rolling dice is false.
It's not chance. Then what is it? It's design, or it's the chemical determinacy. Is that what you're going to say?
No, it's determined by the chemistry yes of things, and so it's not rolling a dice,
Right.
and it's not playing with dice because
Well,
organic material it doesn't function the way dice do.
So, Brenda, to respond to that, I understand you believe this reductionist chemical determinacy idea, but here's something you should probably consider: the arrangement of the base pairs on the sugar ribose backbone of the DNA molecule is not determined by chemical determinacy, because along that sugar ribose backbone molecule, any base pair can attach at any point. Any nucleotide, rather, is able to bond at any bond site along that thing. They could order themselves all A's, all C's, all G's, all T's, or they could be A, T, 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 C, 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 C,
yes,
G, 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 G.
I understand
Hold on, any order. So you're wrong about that at the very least.
Yeah.
The formation of DNA and RNA is not specified by chemical determinacy, because there's nothing about the sugar ribose backbone molecule that forces any given base nucleotide to attach to it at any given place. Chemical determinacy does not order them there.
We're talking about proteins, and proteins.
No, I'm talking about DNA.
No, we're talking about proteins.
I'm talking about DNA.
You shifted the goalpost.
No, I'm talking about
we
DNA.
were talking about your original analogy was with proteins. And
DNA is what
300
in which you didn't even which you totally ignored what I said earlier.
I was not able to respond.
Hold on.
I was not permitted to respond. The point is that proteins and organic molecules in general are not dice. They're not hard little pieces of dye. They are gooey and sticky, and once they stick together within a certain formation, they stay stuck together.
I'm not sure what you're even talking about.
So you don't have to reconstruct an entire 300 protein sequence purely by random. It can be assembled bit by bit, and the bits that stick together will stay stuck together.
Okay, so what you're talking about, I don't even know. I have to, hold on, let me respond real quick, Gman, then I'll give you the floor again. I don't have a clue what you're talking about stickiness. I don't even know what you're talking about.
Because that's how things combine
Brenda,
at the chemical level.
No, it's not. Brenda, we were talking about proteins, but it's the code, it's the DNA molecule that codes for the protein. That's the point. So it's the information in the DNA that specifies which amino acids in what order that results in a protein. I was telling you that chemical determinacy does not determine which nucleotides bond at any given location along the sugar ribose backbone of the DNA. So chemical determinacy does not determine how to code for the specific amino acids. Doesn't. That's a scientific fact. Okay.
I like to go back to what I originally said to Brenda, because again, Brenda doesn't believe that human beings come through natural processes, and I'm sorry, not natural processes, to an intelligent agent, and I want to go back to abiogenesis. Now, here's the thing, Brenda. Okay, because this has been said to you, I don't know how many different times, and I don't know how many different hangouts, but I think it has something to do with your atheism and you not believing that there's a God. But let's just get away from that in a minute, for a minute, okay? Let's just deal with actual science, okay? You believe that there was a complex chemical soup, primordial soup, you guys call it, and you also believe that lightning. Now, mind you, Brenda, while you're having this conversation with me, you have the potential to get people to believe in abiogenesis, meaning they're going to go back and talk to a scientist about this, and what you say has to line up with what they say. Yeah. I want you to remember this now, okay?
Well,
now you believe that there was
I'm not a scientist, G.
Hold on a minute, Brenda.
G-man.
Hold on a minute, Brenda. Okay, so you believe that there was a primordial soup, this complex chemical soup, that was a mixture of what is it? An oxygenless environment. Which doesn't mean that there was no oxygen at all. There was very little of it.
It was a reducing atmosphere. It was a reducing environment.
Right. Life didn't exist yet. Life didn't exist yet, and there was ammonia in this water. Right. Now, during the Miller experiment, how many proteins did they produce?
I don't know. We should bring in somebody who knows this stuff. How about Dragnet?
Well, the reason why, actually, I'm sorry, Brenda, you do know this stuff because earlier you claimed that an intelligence couldn't have anything to do with this. When you made that claim, you made yourself an expert.
I have no need for the hypothesis that life was intelligently designed because it can come about through natural processes.
Right. So just because it can happen naturally, according to you, doesn't mean that it did. So again, you believe that the first living cell came from this process. We know this wasn't reproduced in a laboratory because they only produce a certain amount of proteins. It wasn't the necessary amount of proteins for this to happen, and the scientific community does not agree on what hold on a minute, Brenda.
I don't know.
Hold on a minute, Brenda. Actually, I actually know this. Okay. And I know that during the Miller experiment, they didn't produce enough proteins for them to get the first living cell.
They didn't get
so
any.
Where are you getting your? How do you know, scientifically speaking, Brenda, that this actually happened?
Well, I don't have to in order to counter your arguments against evolution. I could, for the sake of argument, grant you that.
Hold on a minute now.
I could, for the sake of argument, I could even grant you that God created the first living cell and that everything proceeded, therefore, from that first cell by means of evolution. I could do that, and I could still refute. I could still refute your creationist because evolution and abiogenesis are two different things.
Okay, I'm sorry. We're not talking about creationism. We're talking about intelligent design. And I know you like to put the two together, okay? So before we get to creation, let's stick to intelligent design. You believe that the first living cell, and you believe this because if you didn't, you wouldn't defend abiogenesis. You believe that the first living cell came about through a process that you guys call abiogenesis. How come you guys have not been able to and now mind you, this happened unintelligently. Why is it that intelligent people have not been able to reproduce this in a laboratory?
Well, they're very close to reproducing it, as I understand it.
Close.
But somebody with better knowledge, yes.
Brenda, no disrespect, Brenda. No disrespect, Brenda. Close ain't gonna cut it. You believe that this happened. If this happened, you have to be able to show proof that this is science. This is what I'm talking about as a creationist and as a person that supports intelligent design. I believe that atheists try to call things science that is not science. Until it actually is reproduced, you can't call it science.
I can
Brenda,
explain.
before you respond, hold on.
Pseudoscience.
Before you guys go any further, I want to hold on for a second. Guzman's been in here for a long time. He probably has something to say about this. Guzman, have you got any thoughts on there? What do you want to talk about? Anything on your top of your head? What's going on?
Real quickly, back to abiogenesis. Brenda, I want to ask you, what do you think is the difference between abiogenesis and spontaneous creation?
Spontaneous generation was a myth that was prevalent back in the Middle Ages. It's the idea that things just spontaneously. People didn't know about microbes. They didn't know about how things, even how mice. They thought that mice were generated spontaneously from piles of rags. Right? They didn't know much. They were ignorant. So they had the idea that life just spontaneously generated from piles of refuse and things like that. And abiogenesis is not like that. Your mom wants you.
No. All right, so what's the difference then? What's abiogenesis in your opinion?
Abiogenesis is a scientific it's a scientific discipline that is investigating the possible origins of life on Earth.
But it's not science because they haven't been able to reproduce it.
So
there isn't no experiment that has been done to prove that it actually happened. You don't even know what the environment was back then. What you are doing is you're doing what we Christians are doing. Okay, you have a confident trust that these scientists know what they're talking about. Okay, so you got to stop calling it science. Abiogenesis is not science; it is pseudoscience.
It is science. It is a systematic.
No, it isn't.
Science is the systematic study of the natural world around us, right? So that's what science is.
Brenda, when did you destroy me, and Brenda? Because you haven't destroyed the argument that I use for intelligent design, and you already said that you're not good at abiogenesis.
Well,
now all of a sudden you're good at it again. Go ahead, Guzman, 1611.
The reason I say I destroyed you, that's why I have a pie as my avatar. You might recall that discussion. You recall that discussion where I humiliated you and true empiricism and Veckel over.
Brenda, you ain't destroyed nobody. Go ahead, Guzman, 1611.
Over what the nature of the mathematical symbol pi is.
Wait a minute, now you know math now. Wait a minute, are you claiming you know math now? Well, if you know math now, can you please tell me the mathematics involved in abiogenesis and what the odds were for the first living cell to come about? Since you know math now.
I don't see the connection to those two things. The probability depends on.
I thought you didn't know nothing about the topic.
The probability of life coming about is something I wouldn't know. You could ask somebody like Dragnut. Maybe he could tell you.
Oh, I've been challenging Dragnut for God knows how long on a debate on biogenesis, and this guy don't want none. He don't want none of this sauce. And Brendan, no disrespect, Brendan, you didn't destroy nobody. True empiricism read you the paper that talked about your issue with pi, and you want to play and you want to play make believe like you didn't do that. I can always download that show, and put that clip on my channel. Show everybody that you ain't destroy nobody.
To do that. Absolutely.
So anyway,
go ahead. Please
Brenda, abiogenesis is not science until you actually prove it.
No, that's not how science works.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. Can you show me something that I can actually observe? Okay, and can you show me something that I can experiment on to prove that abiogenesis is true? Because the Miller experiment was a failure. Can you please show me? Can you please show me? Hold on a minute. Can you please, because you don't know nothing about this topic you just said. Remember that now. Can you please give me that experiment that I can do, please? Thank you.
I can talk, as far as know nothing, I can talk generally about it. I can't talk specifically about it because I'm not.
Well, I know more about this than Dragnut. I know more about this than Dragnut. So here's the thing now.
You want me to show you something? For one thing, the Miller experiment was done in the 50s. And so there's been like 70 years of work by chemists and biologists since then on abiogenesis, and they've been able to make a number of advances in that field. But as far as recreating life from non-life simplificator, they have not been able to do that. But they've shown
they ain't gonna never do it because it never happened. That's why.
But they've been able to show a number of alternate pathways.
They haven't shown any such thing, Brendan. All they've done is made speculations. Eugene Koonin, back in, was it 9 years ago, in 2011, 8 years ago, he's an eminent biologist and a staunch evolutionist. He said this, and I quote, "The origin of life field is a failure," end quote. So I don't know where you're getting these ideas.
Creationists are often guilty of quote mining. So I would be highly suspicious of your quotes, whether or not they're actually valid or not, or whether they've been pulled out of context. You quite often you're very dishonest person, Nephilim. So the point is
you're right. Christians are dishonest when they show you that it's obviously not science.
Certain people are. Not all Christians are. Just certain people. So the point is that
not dishonest.
Certain people. Well, certain people are. So the point is that there have been advances. For instance, we can show that in the presence of silicate clays, the precursors for DNA will self-assemble into DNA rather easily. In fact. So it happens along the surface of the clay formation within an appropriate environment. DNA will just simply self-assemble. Another thing that's been shown is that lipids will naturally form organelles, which are simply little capsules that have nothing in them. But under the right conditions, lipids will just naturally form into these little capsules or organelles. And so this could be one mechanism by which life began, which is that the lipids would naturally form into these organelles, and by chance, bits of DNA and other organic material could be captured within that organelle, and that could, through over millions of years, lead to a first living organism, and from there to all the life that we see now.
False.
Prove it.
Sure, you need to have full protein synthesis. You need machinery, proteins, DNA, RNA, the cell wall, and metabolism is irreducible. You can't have
that's not true.
DNA without it's irreducible.
No, it's not. You're just saying you have to have a fully modern cell or bacterium, and
without those things, there is no life. Period.
That's false. That's false. You can have life that is very simple and not complex
No, because we have DNA knockout experiments that demonstrate that.
That's not true.
That's wrong.
They don't demonstrate that.
Yeah, it is.
No, it's
show
not.
me a cell that has. Show me a cell without a cell membrane. Show me a cell.
I want you to substantiate your claim. I want you to substantiate your claim. You didn't. You just said that you need to have a modern cell or bacterium, and you don't.
No, you need proteins, DNA, RNA, the cell membrane, metabolisms. Without those, you do not have life. Period.
That's false. That's false.
No, because we have DNA knockout experiments. You know what genetic knockout experiments are?
Go ahead.
They take away one of those things and they test if there's life, and they've already proven there is no life without those. It means it's irreducible.
That's irreducible. Complexity is not an actual scientific term.
No, because we have genetic knockout experiments.
It is today. It might not have been in 1970, but it is right now.
No, it's not. It's not a scientific term.
It sure is.
Taking parts away from say a highly complex machine doesn't prove that simpler machines are not possible. Right? So that's essentially what you just said, Praise, is that because we have complex machinery, and if we take away some of the machinery, it no longer functions.
It shows
therefore, excuse me, just let me finish. You're saying I need to restart again. You're saying that because we have complex machinery, if we take away some of the machinery, and it no longer functions, therefore there cannot be simple functioning machines. That is false. That is an
not just machinery.
Inference.
There's several others. I gave you a list, at least 5 of them. Protein synthesis. I mean, it goes on and on.
Yeah, all of those things.
Polymerase.
The fact that those things are complex, and that if you take things away,
complexity. We're talking about irreducible. They're irreducible. You can't have life without those things.
But that's false. That's just false.
That's not false. That's all we know about.
People have shown that claims of irreducible complexity are false.
Okay, let me respond. No, they haven't shown any such thing.
Yes, they have.
And as far as what we observe, what we know exists in our cells, they are irreducible complex. You're welcome to believe that there was some ancient precursor to it that wasn't irreducibly complex, but all the biology that we know of is irreducibly complex.
The fact that modern cellular organisms are complex, it does not follow that therefore simpler organisms are impossible.
Brenda, what doesn't follow What doesn't follow is claiming that there was once some precursor to a modern complex cell that was not irreducibly complex, when we have no scientific means of showing that such a thing ever existed.
They have actually,
and we don't have any. No, they haven't, and we don't know of any such things that exist.
Yeah, we
today.
do know. We do know the claims made by the proponents of irreducible complexity have been shown to be false, because scientists have shown that the modern complex structures in the cell can in fact arise from simpler constructions.
No.
Yes,
Brenda,
that has been shown to be true. What I
Brenda,
said is absolutely true. It's in the literature. It's in the literature.
Let me share something shocking with you. It's not in the literature.
It is.
No,
it's not.
No, it's not.
Because we do tests. We do tests and knockout tests.
Let me talk to him a second. There is no such literature that states any such thing. What you'll find in the literature is statements by scientists that we assume or we believe that such and such form, precursor form of this must have existed that was that interdependent with or functioned with this other precursor of that other thing. They don't say we can show that there was a precursor of this and there was a precursor of that, and they worked and they functioned together to perform similar, if not the same function as the things that exist today. That, let me finish. That is not in the scientific literature.
Well, a good example of this would be the bombardier beetle, which was a bugaboo of creationists years back, and we can show the smooth progression of species from simple to more complex, leading up to the bombardier beetle, which was claimed to be irreducibly complex years ago by creationists, and biologists have shown that there's a smooth transition from simpler to more complex mechanisms for spraying the chemicals involved in the bombardier's defense system. The chemicals themselves are not complex, we have shown that the claims of irreducible complexity in the bombardier beetle are false.
No, they haven't. They haven't shown any.
Yes, there's a smooth progression. There's a smooth progression of species ranging from simple beetles that simply bubble and foam out of the orifices that emit the chemicals, all the way up to the bombardier beetle, which has a very complex and sophisticated method of.
The chemicals itself burn things. Did you know that?
Right. So
yes.
A creature. Hold on. Let me interject. So a creature that has a foaming goo coming out of its behind that's going to get on itself and its legs is a no-brainer.
It's a good.
I'm sorry.
It's an actual species that exists.
No, natural selection would remove such a creature.
No, it still exists. It actually exists.
No, there is.
Yes, it does. It does. No, it's a species which exists.
Yeah, we know it exists. Not,
then here's the difference,
its
Brenda.
Defense system.
Okay, listen. I'm just Brenda. I'm gonna have to ask you to allow other people to talk without continuously talking over them, because people are constantly trying to talk to you, and you just refuse to let them because you won't stop. So you're just going to have to cool your jets a little, okay? We're not having conversations. We're trying to say things to you, and you won't stop talking. That's all that's been going on in here, okay? So what they've shown is that they don't show any model between creatures that wants to... The difference is this. The chemicals that are produced by similar creatures that don't have the tubes and the jets that spray, these creatures, the chemicals in them is not like the chemicals that exist in the bombardier beetle, for one thing. Okay, those chemicals, when they touch each other, they explode with extreme heat. They're terribly volatile. Now, nobody has shown whereby the chemicals are going to increase in volatility. And natural selection is going to give the sacs and the tubes necessary for those chemicals to be contained and then sent away from the body of the animal in such a way if they're so volatile. Nobody can even show why natural selection would create the tubes.
Right, and same with spider webs too.
We can, and we have. There's a number of species. We just point to existing species that show a clear linear development from very simple mechanisms to the more complex, which is in the bombardier beetle.
You know, Brent, I just want to say this one thing to you, and then I'll let other people have conversations.
Yeah, I have something to address real quick.
I just want to say this to you, and then I'll let other people talk to you. While you've said a number of things that are demonstrably false scientifically in this room, a number of things. In fact, a couple of them are just absolutely ridiculous. Like they have shown, like for example, they have shown how precursors to the cell that had interdependencies, chemical interdependencies for functions, in fact come into existence. And this is in the scientific literature because it's not. It's not.
You're just saying it's Brenda, not. It doesn't prove anything.
Brenda,
it's just denial.
Here, Brenda, here's what I'll do, okay? You provide the science paper that shows that they have just shown how that happened. not just speculated, shown how it happens. I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll get me a rental truck. I'll throw everything I own and I'll tie up my pickup truck to the back of it. I'll tow it to you and give it to you if you can show that. Okay?
Oh, okay.
That's a promise.
Yeah. Just
okay.
It's like most of your promises; they're hollow. So the point is that they've shown, for instance, a common creationist, a canard, is about ATP synthase, or the flagellum in cells, and scientists have shown the evolutionary pathways by which these complex mechanisms could have come about.
Can I address a misnomer, though, for Brenda real quick?
Excuse me?
Yeah, can I address a misnomer you brought up, though?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Well, you're mentioning that we believe in complexity. That's not what we believe in. We believe in specific complexity.
What is that?
The difference. Okay, here's a good illustration. If you drop a bunch of rocks on your driveway, that would just be general complexity. But let's say you drop rocks and it has a message like "Brenda is here." Now that would be a specific message. And that's what we see in the genome, in our cell. We see specific information.
So you're begging the question.
No, it's showing that it cannot come from a naturalistic complexity.
No, you're just presupposing that. You're begging the question.
Brenda, you do realize we're taking it very easy on you with the scientific evidence that we have.
Yes. Oh dear, I'm so worried.
You should be aware. You should be.
Oh boy, am I lucky. So specify
that's hilarious,
complexity.
Brenda. Earlier you said you're not an expert at this, but you keep trying to sound like you're an expert. I just can't get over that. But anyway, go ahead.
Well, I only need high school science to.
Yeah, what's up, Gman?
Yeah, how you doing? What is it? Praise I am that I am. How you doing?
That's the first time I've ever been in the room with you. That's pretty cool, man. I love your stuff.
So, Brenda, let me ask you a question. When did they discover that they had a working model for the development of a cell from non-living material? When did that take place?
I don't know. You'd have to get somebody more expert than I am.
I thought you knew about this stuff.
Yeah. I didn't. I said I gave a couple of probable, possible pathways, which was that lipids naturally form into organelles.
You don't know when they proved that? 1994, 2001, 2007. You don't know this.
Science doesn't prove things.
Well, you don't know when they published these papers, what year, what decade it was.
And you have no right to say creation is false. Then
showing that lipids can form naturally into organelles. No, I don't know when that was. No,
yeah.
But sure. it's still a fact.
Wait, you said science doesn't prove things. How could it be a fact?
Right. Because science shows what facts are. It doesn't prove things like in math. Science doesn't work by proofs. It works by falsification.
Well, you just said there's facts.
Facts are.
Wait a minute.
True. Facts are.
Wait a minute. You said science don't work by facts. It works on falsification.
No, that's not what I said.
I'm sorry. Can you repeat that?
Science demonstrates what is the case, what is factually the case. But it doesn't work by mathematical proofs. So when people talk about science proving things, it doesn't really prove things. It shows an extreme likelihood or probability that such and such is the case.
Off-topic question. If science doesn't prove anything, this is an off-topic question. If science doesn't prove anything, then why are atheists constantly asking for scientific proof for the existence of God?
If scientists say such a things, or atheists say such a things, they're being a little bit too loose. I'm using a very narrow definition of the word proof, and by proof I mean strictly mathematical proof.
Brenda, let me share something with you.
Okay, I'll keep that in mind in my next video.
So let me share something with you, Brenda. You say that they've shown that abiogenesis is possible, and they have working models that show that the complex features of a cell can arise by natural processes. But consider this statement here. This is from, I'm going to share a statement with you. This is from a website an interview on Science Daily, a very secular science website, quoting scientists from the University of Montreal in their article on the origin of life on Earth. Scientists unlock mystery of molecular machine, March 1st, 2009. And they state this, and I quote them. Chemists have been able to observe many examples of self-organizing behavior with simple molecules, yet explaining the self-assembly of biomolecules has not been so obvious. So, if we're to take that statement seriously, you've been spewing BS in here.
Yeah, and I'd like to ask Brenda,
okay.
what epistemology do you justify facts?
So I want to respond to Nephilim. It says scientists have proposed a new theory for how universal molecular machine, the ribosome, managed to self-assemble as a critical step in the genesis of all life on Earth. So thank you for that. It right. supports my case that these things self-assembled. That's exactly what it says. It says that ribosomes manage to self-assemble. That's what I've been saying. Thank you for validating everything I've said.
Well, everything in the cell self-assembles, but self-assembling systems from non-life is the problem. They don't know of any. They don't know of any such pathway.
Here's a quote. Here's a quote. While the ribosome is a complex structure, it features a clear hierarchy that emerged based on chemical principles. Mm-hmm. That's a quote. In the absence of such explanations, people could imagine unseen forces at work when such complex structures emerge in the future. So this just supports everything I've said so far. Thank you very much for validating what I have said.
Brenda, earlier when I pressed you on abiogenesis, Brenda, you claimed that you wasn't an expert, but you keep looking like you know what you're talking about regarding chemistry.
Right.
So it's either you know or you don't know. So could you go back to answer my question that I asked you earlier, please?
I'm operating at what I would say is an undergraduate or high school graduate level of scientific knowledge. So that's all it takes. That's all it takes.
Right. Since it only takes a high school level to do that, then
or undergraduate.
I would like. Well, here's the thing, Brenda. I would like to answer my question, though, Brenda. I like to answer my question. You keep saying abiogenesis happened. How do you know this?
I take it on faith that scientists.
That's all I needed to hear. Thank you.
Right.
Yeah. Thank you for being
honest. Scientists do their due diligence, and that the papers that are reproduced in the journals have been thoroughly vetted and checked by their peers.
By faith, not science.
Trust. Yes,
by
trust.
Faith, not science.
No, science works entirely by faith.
Oh, really?
Wow, they mean that.
Wow, so intelligent design is looking pretty strong right now, huh?
No, intelligent design works entirely by fideism.
Can somebody pop up the Bible real quick and start mentioning those creation scriptures now? Because we believe this on faith.
Yeah,
I'm using faith to mean trust. I'm using faith as trust. And as it means that I trust the scientific community, which operates by consensus.
I actually don't got a problem with that, Brenda.
You know
what, Brenda? I don't got a problem with that, Brenda. I have no problem with that whatsoever. Because I've been saying that about you guys forever, Brenda, that you guys got a faith-based position. You don't got no scientific position. So
that is science. That is science. Let me give you an example. Let me give you an example of another faith-based position that I have. I believe on faith that the Eiffel Tower is 100 meters tall. I have never been to France. I have never been to Paris. I have never seen the Eiffel Tower. I've never measured the height of the Eiffel Tower. What's your definition of faith, Brenda?
Brenda, what's the definition of faith?
Trust.
That's it, just trust?
Yeah. And I take it on
cool.
I take it
So it's not based on evidence or anything like that, right?
I take it on faith. That the entries in encyclopedias on the height of the Eiffel Tower has been
Brenda, I asked you a specific question, Brenda.
I would just like to complete
Is your faith based on evidence? Is your faith based on evidence? Yes or no?
It's based on the evidence. It's based on the continuing trustworthiness of the sources in which I give my trust to. If a source proves itself unworthy of my faith, then I would cease to give it my trust.
Great, great. So for those of you who are watching this that are atheists, and you heard me on GTV say multiple times that atheists accept evolution on faith. I told you.
Yes,
Yeah, Guzman.
but it's a very specific kind of faith. It's a very specific
lack
kind
of
of
belief.
faith.
Then
Brenda,
No,
Brenda,
it's
one of
not
the
a lack of
problems
belief.
with-
It's a very positive. I have a very positive belief
Brent-
that the community of scientists, in their doing their due diligence, have correctly applied the principles of science and have arrived at a consensus opinion on, for instance, on the various topics of physics, chemistry, biology, archaeology, geology, astronomy, all of those things. I take it on faith that these people all working together have come to a consensus opinion, and I take it on faith that their opinion is correct. But as soon as one of them shows that they're not trustworthy, for example, scientists have been shown to occasionally to falsify their data. There was a Korean scientist a while back who falsified his experimental data, and he was exposed and rejected by the scientific community. That's how science works.
Brenda, let me respond to you for a second about this self-assembling of the ribosome. It's not surprising that they can see that ribosomes self-assemble in a cell. The problem is this, Brenda. You can't get the proteins that make the ribosome without the information in the DNA, without the ribosome, you can't make it without the ribosome. You can't make it without the RNA. You can't make it without the polymerase. You can't make it without all these components existing simultaneously. That's the problem. It's not surprising that the cell automatically assembles, that the proteins are designed in such a way that they automatically assemble into a ribosome.
Yeah.
The problem is that the components that make up the ribosome are products of translation by the ribosome.
So
in other words, let me finish.
Well, I thought you.
No,
paused.
I'm not
I
done.
Thought you were done.
Okay.
You paused, and I thought you were done.
Slow down. Okay. So here's the problem: to get a ribosome, which is comprised of very large, complex, mind-bendingly complex proteins, you have to have the proteins. Where do the proteins come from? The ribosome. It's irreducibly
self-assembles.
And you can't get the proteins that make the ribosome without a ribosome. It's irreducible complexity.
No, it's not irreducible.
Yes, it is.
And so from the article that you linked,
Robin,
earlier,
it doesn't matter what that article says. That article
doesn't matter now. No, it doesn't matter. Before it did matter. Now it doesn't matter.
No, it doesn't matter. Let me explain about that. It doesn't matter, and here's why. It's because, let me explain for everybody listening that may not understand this process. The DNA has the codes for the protein in it. A molecular machine called polymerase attaches to the DNA. It goes shooting down the DNA molecule, spitting out a copy of the information in the DNA. That's called an RNA. That RNA is then directed by means that are still mysterious to us to a ribosome, and then it's used. Then the ribosome is a very sophisticated machine that runs that RNA through it like a ticker tape. Tickety, 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 base at a time.
I understand the process.
And it translates the information in the ribosome, in the RNA, into an assembly chain of amino acids, which emerge from the ribosome as an uncompletely folded.
I understand high school science.
But people may not in here, so I'm elucidating it.
That's
so
probably
here's the
true.
point. The ribosome is comprised of proteins that are coded in the DNA. In other words, if you can't read the protein codes off the DNA to make them into an RNA, you can't get the ribosome. Even if the ribosome itself will self-assemble from the pre-made proteins, because of their specific form, they lock together automatically. That's all the paper is pointing out.
So they lock together automatically?
So here's the thing. The machinery, the components of the ribosome You can't get them without the information in the DNA, and you can't even get them and you can't get them without the polymerase. It goes worse than that. Consider this: the polymerase is also comprised of proteins, and it reads the DNA molecule to spit out a copy of the information that makes a protein. The problem is polymerase also is a product of its own translation. The very proteins that make up the polymerase machine are coded in the DNA. The problem works like this. Imagine you have a book written in a language nobody knows how to read. And there is a cipher for that information, that language. There is a translator. The problem is it's in the book. You have to untranslate the book to get the cipher out so you can untranslate the book. That's the same problem with irreducible complexities in the cell. The protein machine, the polymerase, that is able to lift from the copy from the DNA the codes that make the protein that make itself are interdependent with each other.
Right.
You
so
can't
you're just
get
arguing.
You can't get the polymerase without the RNA, without the information in the DNA.
I understood it 15 minutes
ago. You can't
ago.
get the proteins for the ribosome without the polymerase.
I understood 15 minutes. I understood it 15 minutes ago.
You have to stop.
You're filibustering.
If I want to talk for 10 minutes, I will. Just got to hold on.
No, you're filibustering.
Well, you just don't like it. I'm sorry, but I'm just going to talk for a minute or two. Okay. So you have to just allow me to do that. Okay. So here's the problem. You can't get the proteins without the polymerase. The polymerase is coded in the DNA. You can't get the proteins that make up the ribosome without the polymerase. The proteins for the polymerase are coded in the DNA. You can't get the proteins that make up the ribosome without the codes that are in the protein. You've got to have the polymerase to get the codes out of it. You can't get a protein, so you can make a protein machine called polymerase to read the DNA and get the codes for proteins out of the DNA unless you have a ribosome. You can't get any of these things without each other. That's called irreducible complexity. Remove the ribosomes from a cell, it fails. Remove the polymerase from a cell, it fails. Remove the DNA from the cell, it fails. Remove remove the RNA from the cell, it fails. Remove the chaperones from the cell, it fails. Remove the chaperonins from the cell, it fails.
From ignorance.
So
this is just an argument from ignorance.
Each of these components is not ignorance, it's known science.
No.
Each of these components is interdependent with each other. And that's irreducible complexity.
It's just the same failed argument from irreducible complexity that you've made before.
Here's the finished point. Let me finish my point. I'm almost done. So the problem is not that the ribosome will self-assemble. That's a no-brainer. The problem is you can't get the ribosome without all that other stuff. And that's the problem for abiogenesis.
Right,
you can't get you can't get the interdependent machine components that make up the machinery of the cell without having the other components.
Yeah, so I'm glad that you now changed your tune and you're admitting that ribosomes. Yes, you are. No. You're admitting that ribosomes can self-assemble when previously you'd argued that it was impossible.
No, I didn't say that.
You gave a mathematical argument which was flawed, by which you stated that these things were impossible.
No, I didn't.
So I'm glad that you've changed your tune. You've changed your tune.
Brenda.
Ribosomes can, in fact, self-assemble, and many things can self-assemble.
Brenda, don't misrepresent what I said.
That's what you said before. It was just a few minutes ago.
Hold on for a second.
You argued that proteins were not possible.
I'm putting you on mute for a second. Please don't misrepresent what I said. I did not say that I did not say the ribosome cannot self-assemble. I never said that.
Yes. You argued that proteins could not.
Brenda, hold on. I said you're not going to get a cell, but you can't get a cell by self-assembly. Is what I was talking about. And you can't get the proteins. You can't get the proteins by self-assembly either. So
Yes,
I didn't even address ribosome. You're the one that brought up ribosome. Okay.
Yes,
I
you
have
can
no
get
problem that
proteins by
ribosome,
self-assembly.
It's not a problem for creationists that the proteins that make up a ribosome are designed in such a way that they automatically, when they encounter each other, they automatically lock into place. That's ingenious. That's design. But what you can't get is the ribosome without the interdependencies of the other systems. And that's why we don't have any working model for abiogenesis, because they have no working model for the different interdependent components that are capable of producing the base components that make up the components of the cell.
It's a fallacious argument that because modern cells are complex and have interworking parts that depend on each other, it does not follow that there could have been simpler pathways which could bring about the more modern, complex cellular functioning. The fact that today's modern bacteria and modern cells have a complex structure, it does not follow that simpler structures were not possible.
Well, the problem
it's been shown by scientists that there are simpler alternate pathways in which various pieces could have been selected by natural selection, and then some of the simpler pieces could fall away, and leaving with a complex structure in which all the parts need each other in order to function. But the previous components, which evolved millions of years ago, fell away and became disused, right? And are no longer present. They fall away and they leave a complex structure behind. That's entirely possible. And it's been shown by evolutionists that this is one pathway to explain the flagellum, the bacterial flagellum. It could have easily evolved from simple to complex, with the simple parts then becoming disused because they were selected against by natural selection, leaving us with the complex. Leaving us with the complex rotor of the flagellum that we have in modern bacteria today.
Okay, so let me respond now to everything you just said. They haven't shown that a flagella will arise from by natural chemistry, and in fact now it's been discovered that the vacuole motors in a cell is likely what they think the flagellum evolved. The agellum. I mean, the flagellum, the vacuoles. Let me finish now. It's now believed by evolutionist scientists, but secular ones, that the flagellum, the vacuole motors evolved from the flagella, not the other way around as they've been claiming for 20 years, 15 years. So that's backwards. Now, when it comes to what you said was that it's not implausible that they could have had, and there could have been, and there might have been, and all this precursor stuff. That's your philosophy, and you're welcome to believe what you want. But the problem is this: nobody has shown chemically that there could have been precursor machinery that would be interdependent.
And I have the paper.
Okay. Right, I'm gonna mute you right now, okay? Because I know you're not gonna let me finish. Okay, so nobody has shown with chemistry that precursor or machinery can be made that would be interdependent with other precursor machinery that would be step by step evolve into the machinery that we have in the cell today. Nobody has shown any such thing with experimental science. They've speculated that there could have been, and it might have been, a little differently shaped, and it might not have had this component. They have not shown that any such thing occurred in the past. They have not shown that they can assemble in a laboratory any of these precursors that will be interdependent with each other to provide the same function as the things that exist in a cell today. They speculate. They do not show any such thing.
Right, and they're because of genetic knockout experiments. That's how we know. That's what I'm trying to tell Brendan.
So I posted a link to a research article on PNAS, stepwise formation of the bacterial flagellar system. So you're simply wrong.
No, I'm not wrong. I'll explain why.
You're simply wrong.
If you read that paper, you're going to find all kinds of assumptions built in it. Not that we can show anything.
Science works by making assumptions.
They don't show.
That's how science works, by making assumptions. That's how it works. You make reasonable assumptions and work out from those assumptions, based on those assumptions, which are called hypotheses. Working on those assumptions, you can reason outward. Science is based on assumptions.
No, it's not. It's based on
inference. Yes, it is.
No,
Yeah,
it's not. It's based on
you
inference.
make inferences
You might use an
based on
assumption to form a hypothesis, but to get a theory, you have to have evidences
you
that
make
support.
inferences based on assumptions.
Okay, I'm going to mute you again because I know you're not
You
willing to
make
let anybody.
inferences based on
Okay,
assumptions.
one more time, you're gone. We're going to have a discussion here. We're not going to have you railroading everything I say. All right. So you begin with an assumption for a hypothesis. That's all well and good. But if you want to find a scientific theory, you have to have evidences that support it, or you don't have a theory. You don't jump from hypothesis to theory without observational science. There must be evidence that supports it. They have no observable scientific evidence of precursor machinery that was interdependent that provided biological function of anything. They have speculations, they have conjectures, they have no working models, chemical models whereby biologists draw up the proteins or pre-protein, whatever that could be. Non-protein machinery. What in the heck is that? Nobody knows of any such thing as that.
I don't know what you're talking about.
They speculate about what might have existed and how it might have been kind of like this. They don't show that any such thing
Those are called hypotheses.
They don't show that any such thing can form or that interdependent systems can form that way. No scientist has ever shown any such thing.
Science works by hypotheses, which is basically an assumption, right? Which is then tested.
Brenda, what you said is scientifically false.
And I have a
Nobody
paper
has
to
shown-
respond to Brenda with. I have
That's
a
how
paper to
science
respond
works.
back.
Science works by
So
assumptions.
Brenda, I have a paper to respond back to your paper. So the structures of the chaperone substrate complexes docked onto the export gate type 3 secretion system, which shows that it's in a degraded state. So no, you're wrong about that. It's been
I don't see the link. Where's the link for that?
I'll
Did
put
you
it
post
into
a link?
Yeah.
You can put it in here or in the outside chat. I don't know which.
Anybody else in here that wants to talk?
So
Gman and Guzman, you guys are welcome to interrupt and jump in anytime you like to.
The larger point is that intelligent design is not it's a religion. It's not science, because intelligent design presupposes a creator.
No, it doesn't.
Yeah, it does.
No, it presupposes a designer of higher intelligence.
Yeah.
It doesn't presuppose.
Yeah, that's a presupposition that is not warranted. Right.
Right.
There's no reason to believe.
It doesn't presuppose a deity. It presupposes
does.
an intelligence. That's all.
They testified in court.
No, they didn't
that they
say
are a religion. Yes, they did.
No, they didn't, Brenda.
Yes, they did.
No, they did.
Testified.
They defended
in court.
the idea that it was a scientific hypothesis.
They were asked directly by the judge, and they said, yes, intelligent design is a religion. Yes,
Get the transcript. They did not.
Yes,
No.
I can get that. Yes.
No,
Creation is a Genesis doctrine, Brenda. Please stop complaining.
Thanks, Brenda. You said two things that contradicted each other just now. You said, first of all, that they admitted that intelligent design is a religious idea, and then you said that they admitted that they were religious. That's two different things.
Oh, that was a mistake on my part then.
Okay, which one is it?
The people saying that they were religious would be a mistake on my part. What I meant to say is that the defendants in the Dover case admitted in court that intelligent design is a religion and not science.
All right, I would.
No, they said.
I'd like to ask for that transcript. What's it called?
Well, you could. I think it was Dover. I might be wrong on. Maybe it was a different decision, but my understanding. I remember looking this up a long time ago, and they said in court they are asked directly by the judge, and they responded that indeed intelligent design is a religion because it presupposes.
No, the judge said that, not them. You're
right.
You're mixing them up.
That's
he
right.
Asked them.
The judge said that.
No, he asked them, and they responded in the
Richard,
affirmative.
He asked them if they were religious. Maybe he didn't. They didn't say it's a religious idea. They defended. They defended their position that it's. They defended their position that it's a scientific theory.
No, there's another reason why intelligent design is not science. It's because it's not falsifiable.
It actually
As
is through
science
Darwinian
has-
evolution. Yes, it is. I mean,
Richard,
Stephen Meyer addressed this with a 3-hour freaking video.
No,
think-
science requires unfalsifiable hypotheses, and intelligent design.
I just said Darwinian evolution falsifies it. What do you not understand about that?
I believe that Richard Dawkins is an atheist, correct?
Yeah.
Either an atheist or agnostic. I don't know which.
And he has admitted that if you look in I believe he said in the DNA strand, you could find a signature of some sort of designer.
I don't know if he said that or not.
It does sound like that. You can look it up. It's in Ben Stein interview, but
That was the Ben Stein. Those interviews were heavily edited interviews in which things were pulled out of context and spliced and cut and paste in a way to misrepresent what the people said.
I know how to.
This is deceit and deliberate lies by Ben Stein in that movie. It's a lie.
I would like to know how you know this. That it was
Because the principals, the people involved, I remember the time when that movie was released, and the people who were quoted in that movie attended the movie and wrote about it on their blogs and said directly that they had been misrepresented and lied about by Ben Stein.
Well, how can they be misrepresented? It was said of his own words. Dawkins said of his own mouth.
Because you can cut up, Praise, you can cut up what people say, take it out of context, and reassemble it in a way that makes people say something that's the opposite of what they actually said. That's why.
You mean they altered what he said?
Yes, you can do that by cut and paste.
I know you can do that, and it's not
Okay, I'll have to look into that.
cut and paste. It's just cut and delete. Anyway,
the defendants in the Dover trial did not say that their theory was religious. They said it was a science. They defended it as a scientific theory. They did not say it's based on religion. They were asked if they were religious. They answered yes, but they did not say their theory was in religious.
No, they said the theory itself is
no, they didn't.
Not science and is religious.
Can you send a link to that, Neff?
No, they did not.
Did you look it up
Yes,
just
they
now?
did.
No, they didn't say that. They defended it to. They defended it to the end of the trial as a scientific theory, Brendan.
Neff, really quickly, do you have the transcript with you right now? Did you
No,
actually?
I don't have the transcript to it.
All right. If anybody,
I've seen Stephen Myers and Michael Behe discuss it though in videos where they discuss it and how they defended it as a scientific theory.
Okay, so back again. Intelligent design, I don't think necessarily is religious. There are many people, such as Richard Dawkins, who have said that they think that intelligent design could be plausible. Again, Neil deGrasse Tyson has also said that it could be it's hard to argue against the possibility that we are designed by some sort of designer in some parent's basement or something. Some weird, crazy quote like that. But it's not necessarily religious. Young Earth creationism is religious because it has to go with some sort of biblical belief. And intelligent design itself doesn't necessarily have to be religious.
So if intelligent design is not true, how did the DNA become a package of information which is organized linguistically and operates with algorithms? Because it's known that information, linguistics, and algorithms arise only from intelligence. That's the only cause for those three things. And DNA is prescriptive information that prescribes the features of every living thing.
That's wrong. That's false. DNA is not a language. It's not a language, and it's not a prescriptive. It's not a prescriptive algorithm. It's not those things.
Scientists say it's language.
No, they don't.
Yes, they do.
You don't understand. You don't understand what information is.
Yes, I do.
I'll tell you don't. You don't know what information is.
Brenda, I'm going to tell you what information is. Okay.
Go ahead.
Information is knowledge conveyed from a sender to a receiver using a language agreed upon by both parties. If there is no knowledge,
Yeah.
there will be no information. If there is no act of hold on. If there's no act of informing, no information will be created. If there's not a language agreed upon by both parties, no information can be conveyed. You cannot convey a thought, an idea, or anything to anybody without a language agreed upon by both parties. If you speak Portuguese, the other guy speaks German, and that's all the languages you speak, there will be no information created. You have to use sign language, and both of you understand the signals of the hands. There is always a language. There's a system of symbols involved whenever whenever information is conveyed. Every time we find an example of information, it is knowledge that's being conveyed using a system of language of some kind, a system of symbols that convey meaning and purpose. Okay, so that is what information is.
No. Information has many meanings. In communication sciences, that is the correct definition of information. But what we're talking about is stochastic information, not the type of information in communication theory.
No.
This is different types. So the information that's in the tree rings in a tree is stochastic information. It is not a message. It's not a communication.
Yes, it is.
No, it's not.
Let me explain to you what it is. It is because it has function and meaningfulness, and it prescribes the features of living things.
No, meaningfulness
it specializes. Hold on. It determines cell type and cell arrangement in the organism during its developmental stage, so that the features of the organism are produced by the information that specifies what types of cells are to be arranged in exactly what order. So it prescribes the features.
No, that's false.
And
that's false.
And that's modern science.
No, it isn't. So you don't understand information.
And it also possesses...
Let me ask you a question.
Wait, I'm not done. It also possesses linguistics properties. It also possesses... I'm so tired of dealing with people like this. You can't...
Let me explain. Let me ask you a question.
Okay, Brandon, I'm just going to finish. Let me ask... So it's information, and it operates linguistically. DNA is now known to possess in chemical functions commands that operate precisely like the punctuation in human language. In fact, its linguistics is now known to be more complex than any spoken human language, according to a recent study by the Karolinska Institute in Sweden. Recently published, they have discovered and published in the journal Nature that the linguistics characteristics of DNA is more sophisticated than any spoken human language. Okay, able to create words and phrases on the fly as needed from previous examples of words and punctuation. So it's ingenious. Now, it also possesses algorithms. The DNA uses algorithmic functions to find information, compare information, to copy, insert, paste, delete information, to write and utilize the information in the cell, in the DNA. And how they determined that it's algorithmic is by writing an algorithm that describes what the machinery is doing. That's how they discovered that it's algorithmic. They write out the steps of what it does, and then the programmers, computer programmers, mathematicians would look at this and say, lo and behold, that's an algorithm. So they keep discovering more algorithms in the DNA. In fact, they've discovered that the algorithms in DNA are superior to man's algorithms. They've actually begun to take algorithms found in DNA this way and apply them in computer science, and they've found that those algorithms are superior to man's algorithms. So DNA is a four-dimensional package of information that's expressed with punctuation, syntax, grammar, semiotics, phonetics, and grammar. And it possesses algorithmic information processing functions. So information, linguistics, and algorithms come only from intelligence. And I'm afraid to tell you, this is empirical evidence that every living thing on this planet was designed by a mind, and that mind, because the complexity and interdependencies of a cell is so unfathomably great, then we know that the intelligence that designed it is unfathomably great.
So let me ask you a question.
Hold on. Before you continue, I just want to say real quickly, I have to get going. Thanks, Neff, for inviting me on the live stream. Nice talking to you.
Thanks for coming, Guzman. Take care, brother. Thanks for
See you guys.
See ya, Pray. See ya, Gman. And just want to say to everyone in the chat, if you don't know you're going to heaven, check out a video called "The Bible Way to Heaven" by Pastor Jonathan Shelley, and it'll go through with you on that. So God bless, guys.
Maybe in the future,
Thank you, Guzman.
your mom will let
Appreciate
you come
that.
inside to do this.
Oh, please.
I'm just kidding him. It's just a joke.
Okay.
He's standing
All right,
on
Guzman.
the porch outside.
Okay, Guzman. I appreciate you. Thanks for coming, buddy. God bless.
So I want to ask you a question, a series of questions, Nephilim. So if I take a notepad from my computer and I write down a word, it has 6 letters in it, and I save the word, and let's say, and then I take a look and I open up I save the text on my desktop, and then I look at I right click on it and check the properties. It's what? So let's assume it's something like 12 bytes. It has 12 bytes on it. The word I put in there is an English word. So that has information in it, correct?
Could you repeat it, please? Because I don't want to make a mistake.
No, let's say I take a text in Notepad. I create a text document.
Okay.
It's just regular, and I put in like an English word that's like, say, 6 letters long.
Okay.
And it's an English word. I don't know, make something up, and then I save it and I checked it, and it's so many X number of bytes long, and that has information. That's information.
Not unless you convey it to somebody. It's data unless you convey it.
No, it's information. That is information.
It's data unless it's conveyed. Information is knowledge that is conveyed. If whatever you write down in a book is never conveyed, it's not information.
Yes, it is.
You could take, Brenda, let me explain. You could take the Bible, dig a hole 1,000 feet deep in the earth and drop it down and bury it. There's no information there because it's never going to be conveyed.
That's just false. That's
not information. That's just
is.
data until it's interpreted and shared. Then it's information.
I didn't expect you to fail. I didn't expect you to fail so hard on this.
That's what information is. Knowledge
no, it's
conveyed.
Information. It's in my computer.
No, it's data.
It's in my computer. It's represented as a series of symbols.
It's data.
It's data. Yes, that data is information.
No, it's information once it's conveyed to somebody or something.
It was conveyed to me. I wrote it down.
Then it was information.
It has to be expressed. Yeah.
Then it's information.
No, it doesn't. No, it doesn't.
Then it's information if it's conveyed to you.
It doesn't have to be expressed. You don't understand even the most basic first fact of information. It doesn't have to be conveyed. That's what
Brenda,
information is. Simply a pattern.
Brenda,
that's all it is.
No, it's not. Brenda, do you understand that the word information is based upon the root word inform? If there is no informing, there is no information.
Yeah, we don't decide these things by definition.
I'm sorry.
This isn't how the real world works.
So this is what happens when you have naturalist, materialist, evolutionist type people come in and discuss this subject of information with you. They turn into dictionary denialists. They deny in order to hold to their views, they'll go so far as to deny the meaning of words that are commonly expressed in the dictionary.
Well,
and in fact, they'll deny that the word information is not based on the root word inform.
Yeah,
Isn't
information is based on information theory. It doesn't say what you think it says. We do not understand information theory by looking up the meanings of words in dictionaries.
Sure.
That's not how the world works.
Let me share with you some information theory, okay? I'm going to share with you a few some information theory. There are 10 laws of nature regarding information, and these laws of nature verify that creation is true. First is this: anything material, such as a physical or chemical process, cannot create something non-material. 2, information is a non-material fundamental entity and not a property of matter. 3, information requires a physical medium for storage and transmission. 4, information cannot arise from statistical processes. 5. There can be no information without a code. No thought or idea can be shared without a code. 6. All codes result from an intentional choice and agreement between a sender and a recipient. 7. The determination of meaning for and from a set of symbols is a mental process that requires intelligence. 8. There can be no new information without an intelligent, purposeful sender. 9. Any given chain of information can be traced back to an intelligent source. 10. Information comprises all the non-material foundation for all technological systems, works of art, and biological systems. Now, therefore, excuse me, since DNA of all life is clearly within the definition domain of information, we conclude that there must be a sender. Since the density and complexity of the DNA encoded information is billions of times greater than man's present technology, we conclude the sender must be supremely intelligent. Since the sender must have A. encoded the information into the DNA molecule, B. constructed the molecular biomachines required for encoding, decoding, and synthesizing processes, and designed all the features of the original life forms. We conclude, therefore, that the sender must be supremely intelligent and purposeful and powerful. Since information is a non-material fundamental entity and cannot originate from material quantities, we conclude that the sender must be a non-material component. Since information is a non-material fundamental entity and cannot arise from material quantities, and since information also originates from man, we conclude man's nature must have a non-material component. We would call that spirit. Since information is a non-material entity, we conclude that the assumption the universe is comprised solely of mass and energy is false, since biological information originates only from an intelligent sender, and all theories of chemical and biological evolution require that information must originate solely from mass and energy alone without a sender. We conclude that all theories of concepts of biological evolution are false, and here's the kicker. Anyone who disagrees with these laws and conclusions must falsify them by demonstrating the initial origin of information from purely material sources. Therefore, the laws of nature about information have refuted the assumption of scientific materialism and the theories of chemical and biological evolution, and all philosophies or theories based on the assumption of scientific materialism, including chemical and biological evolution, are falsified by the laws of nature about information. Now,
what's your source for that?
That's
What's your source?
Dr. Git Werner.
Who's he?
Information theory specialist.
Yeah, I would reject several of those premises.
I'm sure
they're demonstrably false.
Well, demonstrate they're false.
Well, I didn't write it down. It was quite long. You tend to filibuster for hours and hours. So I don't remember the early ones.
Well, you don't know which ones are wrong, but you said they're wrong.
Yeah. I remember hearing them, and they were wrong. That information is non-material and stuff like that. That's false.
Information
doesn't arise from statistical processes.
Right,
that's flat out wrong.
Let's start with the first one. Information is non-material. So let me demonstrate why you're wrong when you say information is material. So I imagine I have a King James Bible here, and I read the words to you over the telephone. And now I just shared the information with you, but I didn't move one atom of the book, not one quark. Not one photon of this book moved anywhere. So
yeah, you read
information,
yes, you
hold
read
on.
it.
Let me finish. So the information is not the book and the paper and the ink. It's not the paper and ink.
That doesn't follow.
That's only the medium on which is encoded with the information. The information can pass to a different medium. I can take the Bible and speak it to you, and you can write it down or type it up on a computer and burn it to a hard disk or email it to somebody.
Yeah, that's translation.
So what happens is the information can be transmitted from one medium to another without changing one iota. And this verifies that the information is non-physical.
No,
It's
that doesn't follow.
not made
that
of.
Doesn't follow.
It's not made of.
So
It's
is there
not
a
made
point
of.
here where I
It's
get
not.
to respond?
It's not
Is there
made
a point
of.
here where I get to
When I'm
respond?
done explaining you why you're wrong,
Well,
then you
how
can-
is that going to be another
Well,
half an hour of
that
you
just
talking?
takes long enough for you to be quiet, long enough for me to finish. The less you interrupt, the faster it happens. I'm only going to be talking a few more seconds, but you won't stop. So, because the information can be transmitted from one medium to another without changing one iota, verifies the information is not the medium, it's not comprised of or a property of matter, because the information transmits from one place to another. I'll give you one more quick scenario and then you can
I
respond.
thought you were going to be done.
So if information were material, and that material is in my brain, and I'm standing before an auditorium full of college students and I'm giving a lecture and I'm speaking to them and everyone is a recipient of that information, for information to be a material thing, I would have to be sharing brain matter from my brain into their brain with every single student as I spoke.
That doesn't follow.
And
That
that's
doesn't
not
follow.
and that's not
It doesn't.
true.
It doesn't
So
follow from the fact that you.
this
Do I
verifies
get to talk at
this-
all or
this-
not?
this
Do I get
verifies
to talk
that
or not?
this verifies that information is not physical because it can be transmitted without moving the medium.
That's false. That's not a valid inference.
What's false about what I said?
The fact that something can be transmitted doesn't mean it isn't material.
I'm sorry, say again?
The fact that something can be transmitted from one place to another place doesn't mean it can't be material. The information
in the book is the book, right?
The information is in the book. It's physically in the book.
It's the book. It's physically the book itself, right?
The information is in the arrangement of the words and letters on the page of the book. Yes.
Great.
It's physically in the book.
Right.
In the
It's
form
recorded
of
on
ink,
the
in the form of ink, printed words in ink on the paper, which you then read, you translate into your mind, and then speak it out.
Right.
And that those spoken words get transmitted through the telephone, let's say, and then conveyed to me, and then I retranslate them, and then I can write them down. So that's all. That's an entirely physical process. There's no spooky immaterialism in there at all.
Okay, so let's consider what you've said. You first said it's the book. And I said, what? And you said, no, it's in the book. Then you said it's how. Now let me finish. Then you said it's how the paper and ink are arranged that conveys the information. And I said, aha, exactly. But you see, the information is the arrangement to convey something. The use of symbols to convey something. Right.
That's
now,
physical. That's physical. That's in the arrangement of the words and letters on the page.
That's a physical medium. Right. But now, the information itself is not made of matter.
Yes, it is.
No, because
it's on the page.
Then how is it that I transmit the information without the matter of the book moving at all?
Well, you can see with your eyes.
Right. So the book doesn't go into my eyes. That's right.
Well, you translate. You translate the information that's on the printed page. It's physically on the page, but you read it off and translate it.
But none of the book goes anywhere, right?
Let's see you extract this information from Nephi's mind. Let's see you extract that information from Neph's mind.
Right, but see, Brenda, here's your mistake.
He's translating.
None of that, isn't it true that when I read the Bible, none of the ink or paper that is the book itself leaves anywhere. It doesn't go anywhere. It stays exactly in the book. Is that right?
Yeah, that's consistent.
Then how do I get the
materialism
information out if the information...
You don't get the information
Brenda,
out. You translate it.
Brenda, you've made a very serious logical error here. You've admitted my case. Let me explain why. You've said that the information is made of matter. It's comprised of matter.
Yes.
You acknowledge that the information was the arrangement. How the matter is arranged is what conveys information, right?
Yes.
All right, that's correct. Now, but if the information were comprised of matter, and if that information was this book, in order to share that information, that book's matter would have to move from one location to another.
No, that doesn't follow.
No, that's where you drop the ball. That's where you drop the ball and make the mistake of admitting that the book doesn't have to move anywhere while still attempting to claim the information is comprised of matter. You
It
admit
doesn't
that the
follow.
arrangement of matter is what conveys, is the symbols, the language used to convey
It
information,
doesn't follow.
knowledge.
It
Okay?
does not.
But
It
the
does not follow.
information is not the paper and the ink. That's
No,
the
you haven't
problem.
shown that. It does not follow that because the information is physically represented on the page by the ink on the stains on the paper in the forms of words and letters. It does not follow that because that remains undisturbed, that therefore it's immaterial.
It does.
It doesn't
verifies
follow. No, it doesn't.
Brenda, it verifies it, and I'll guarantee you this, Brenda. I'm telling you the truth. If 100 million people watched this little segment of this video and heard what you said, every one of them, atheist or not, would agree with me. All of them.
That's just an appeal
Because
to popularity.
I don't care.
Argumentum
I
ad
don't care.
populum. That's
I don't
a fallacy.
care. I'm only
That's
pointing
a
that out.
fallacy.
I don't care. I'm only pointing that out
You
because
don't
it's
care
true.
of whether it's fallacious
I'm
or not.
only
That's
pointing it
fine.
out. I'm only pointing it out to help you realize how egregious your error was.
If you like,
I got a
don't
question
care.
about this though, regarding what Brenda just said regarding and Brenda, you just said that the pages, I'm sorry, that numbers are not immaterial, that they're material. Is that your argument?
They're ink stains on a piece of paper, right? That are the arrangement of letters and words, right? That form the sentences of on the page, on the printed page, that's then translated by you, and then spoken aloud over the telephone. Yeah.
Okay. So what about numbers in general? Are those material or immaterial?
I
It's the
believe
number
that,
3, for example. It's the number 3 material or immaterial?
I believe that abstractions exist in your brain. I'm a conceptualist. Words
Okay, great,
are concepts.
great.
Words are concepts.
All
They
right.
are physically represented in your brain.
Okay. What do they feel like?
They are specific arrangements of and patterns of firing of neurons in your brain. They are concepts and ideas are
Oh, okay.
physical.
Well, let's see,
It's
Mr.
a physical network.
Wait a
it's
minute.
physical network.
Let me finish this one here real quick. Okay. So you don't know what they feel like then?
What feels like?
Numbers. What do they feel like with your hands when you touch them? Because material things you can touch, right?
If I could pull out in my brain where my concepts are stored, they would feel like a bunch of gooey neurons.
Okay. I'm not going to
That's
say
a
what
composite-
NephilimFree.
that's-
I'm not going to
that's
say what
a-
NephilimFree just said because I think that's obvious. But
That's-
the thing is,
that's
the thing is, Brenda, you're wrong about this. All right. You can't touch the number 3. The number 3. The number 3 is an immaterial thing.
That's
Hold
just
on a
a
minute.
composite.
But just hear me out. I can make assertions too. All right, without proving anything. All right. And my assertion is that number 3 is not material, and you have to accept it because I said it. You see, that's
No,
what
I
you've been doing all night. You have been sitting here making a bunch of assertions without backing anything up. So that's all I wanted to say about that.
Number one, you're committing the composition division fallacy, that because the number 2 is represented in my brain by a certain arrangement of neural activity, that therefore it must feel like a number 2.
I'm not committing a fallacy, and I believe you're making that up
That's
too.
a fallacy of composition.
No, it's not a fallacy of composition.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
This is what you've been doing all night, Brenda, okay? Just because you give somebody an answer doesn't mean that you're actually addressing what they're saying. And one of the things that you are really good at, and honestly, I wish they could make a championship belt for you because I would give it to you. You and people like Soccer Count are really good at answering questions that ain't got jack to do with what a person asked you. All right. So here's the thing now, okay?
Well,
the number 3, you can't tell me how it feels. You can tell me it's in your brain to you or you want. Can you prove that?
Yes, I can.
Okay, so do it right now. Do a quick screen share and prove it to everybody. Do a quick screen share and prove it to everybody. Because my God doesn't exist because there's no evidence or whatnot, right? I'm gonna put your feet to the fire for a little bit, okay? Prove to me that you can touch the number 3.
I need an MRI machine, but scientists have used MRI machines to read off people's thoughts. So we can read off people's
Brenda,
thoughts
I greatly
using
appreciate
an MRI.
Brenda, I appreciate you, Brenda, because you have doing more for me than I could ever have done by myself. That's all I wanted to say.
Yeah, I'd like to address the thoughts thing.
People, it's been shown functional magnetic resonant
That's
imaging
ridiculous.
that we can read off people's thoughts.
No, they can't.
Even before they are consciously aware of them.
No, they can't.
Yes,
Brenda, let me ask you a
things
question.
doesn't
No,
make it true.
I've investigated what they've shown.
Wait a minute. Now,
Let me address
one
that.
second,
'cause I
now.
actually
Wait
have
a minute. One
science
second,
to
now.
back that up.
I'm sorry. One second, now. So, Brendan. Okay, let's say I accept the idea that the number 3 is material because in your brain, you got these waves and everything and whatnot, and you believe that and everything. Let me ask you a quick question: does God exist?
Which God?
The God of the Bible. Is he material or immaterial?
The God of the Bible cannot exist because he involves a logical contradiction.
Okay. So before we get to the logical contradiction, I'm going to use your own argument against you to show you that he does exist. You see, I can say the number 3, and in my brain, there's a wave there, right? And you can touch it and whatnot, right? I can say the word God, and that's going to show up in my brain too. So I'll be able to touch it then too, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so God exists. Nice. Thanks for playing.
Yes, God exists as a concept in your head. Yes, that's right. I don't have a problem with that.
He exists as a person too. He exists as a person too for the same reasons too. But anyway.
No, that doesn't follow.
Oh, yes, it does. Now, can you explain to me why he's a logical contradiction?
Oh, because you can't have 3 things that are one thing.
Well, explain that, please.
Well, the God of the Bible under Christian theology is presupposed to be the Holy Trinity, which involves a contradiction.
Oh, okay, cool. Wait. I'm sorry. Wait. Please let me have this. Okay, so can you do me a favor, Brendan, for the sake of clarity, because I don't think Neff understands this, or praise I am that I am understands this, or anybody that's watching this. Can you explain the Holy Trinity to me, please?
It's 3 beings and 1 being.
No, it isn't. Can you explain the Trinity, please?
Let me explain. Here's my
That's
answer.
modalism. Can you explain what the Trinity is?
Here's my answer, G-Man. Now, here's my answer. Listen, can I explain the Trinity? Here's my answer. No.
That's because it's logically
it's 3 persons
contradictory.
and 1 being, 3 personalities. That's a trinity. There you go.
Well, is it 3 persons that you?
Wait a minute. Brenda made a positive claim.
Not 3 persons.
See, this is my thing about the atheists. We let them get away with this too much. They make a lot of positive claims about our Bibles, which I know they haven't read. But here's the thing, Brenda. Hold on. Just hear my argument, then you can respond. Okay? You guys make a lot of arguments about a book you guys never read, and you just said that the Trinity is impossible. So I want you to do a little Bible study for me right now and explain to me what the Trinity is, according to what I believe. See, you're supposed to wait for me to make the claim and then debunk it. But since you already jumped the gun and said that it's an impossibility, explain the Trinity to me, please.
It's the Trinity says that God is the Father, God is the Son, and God is the Holy Spirit.
And how does that work?
It doesn't work because it leads to a contradiction.
No, I didn't ask you that. I asked you to explain to me what it is and how does it work, because the way you're explaining it sounds like modalism. So please explain to me again. Come on, Brenda, because this is a Christian doctrine, and I think I understand this a whole lot better than you. So since you jumped the gun and claimed that isn't a possibility, that shows that you understand this. You made a knowledge claim. What is the Trinity? I'll ask you the last time.
Well, it doesn't make any sense, so I can't explain something that I don't.
I'm sorry. Evolution doesn't make any sense to me. Therefore, evolution isn't true then.
No. Evolution does make sense. You just don't.
No. Evolution does not make sense to me.
Yes.
Therefore, evolution isn't true. Abiogenesis doesn't make any sense to me. Therefore, it's not true. You claiming to be an atheist when your actions say something totally different doesn't make any sense to me. Therefore, you're not an atheist. Do you understand how this works? That is weak sauce. You need to actually tell me what the Trinity is without committing a logical fallacy or sounding nonsensical or whatever, and explain to me what it is, and then tell me how it doesn't make any sense.
So when I say that the Trinity doesn't make sense, what I mean is that it is logically self-contradictory.
Okay, so what's the Trinity then? In order for it to be logically self-contradictory, you got to know what it is. So what is it?
It says that God is the Father, God is the Son, and the Holy Spirit.
No, it does not say that. Please explain to me in theological terms the Trinity, please. That is not what it says.
So is God the Father?
There are 3 co-eternal entities that make up the Godhead. Do you understand
that's false.
that?
There's only one God.
Hold on a minute. There are 3 co-equal entities that make up the Godhead. Please explain to me how that doesn't make any sense. The way you explained it is not true. The way I did is a whole lot closer to what it is than what you just said. Tell me how that doesn't make any sense.
What you said does make sense because you're saying that there are three gods.
No, I'm not. I'm saying that there are three co-equal entities that make up the Godhead. Now, here's the thing. Now,
are there three? How many?
Just hold on a minute. Hold on a minute. Your first argument was, hold on a minute. I demonstrated you don't know what the Trinity is. Secondly, I demonstrated that your argument of saying that because you don't understand it, therefore it isn't true, is ridiculous. Because if that's true, I could probably find a 5-year-old that don't understand evolution. Does that mean evolution isn't true? Absolutely. It's ridiculous.
Evolution doesn't lead to a logical
like I said, I'm going to make you a championship belt. Just answering things and saying things ain't got jack to do with the topic.
So, G-Man, when you say there are three co-equal entities, how many is that?
There's only one God, honey.
Is that three?
I'm sorry. I keep forgetting about you, Brenda. I got to stop calling you honey.
Yeah,
that's fine.
Listen, guys.
It doesn't matter to me. Is it three or is it one?
The simple explanation to this conundrum is this. Yes, it does contradict our limited human logic, but what we're talking about is God, and it's not logically impossible for God to be Father, Holy Spirit.
Right, he condescended to us. But
thank you.
Can I make
thank you for admitting that the Trinity is logically.
That's funny. Water can be ice. Water can be water, ice, and vapor.
It exceeds.
Water can be water, ice, and vapor. Water can be water, ice, and vapor, though. But you know that no one can possibly understand that. Brenda, listen to me, Brenda. If you're going to come in here and try to argue against God, all I ask the atheists to do when you guys do this is at least know the claim before you start debunking it. Calm down, breathe in, breathe out. Know the claim first.
Real quick, though, on the thought. She says
that's modalism, and that's a heresy. G-Man, your modalism is a heresy.
Oh gosh. Can I respond real quick?
Hey, Brenda, are you saying, Brenda, that people... wait a minute, let me get this straight here. So the no true Scotsman fallacy doesn't exist in Brenda? Because from your worldview, that would be the no true Scotsman fallacy. So you would have a modalist who thinks that who says they're a Christian, and now you got a Trinitarian who says that they're a Christian. Are you now saying, as an atheist, not as a Christian, are you now saying an atheist that the no true Scotsman fallacy doesn't exist no more? You got to get up a little earlier than that, Brenda, to fool me. All right?
Are you saying that you're a modalist?
I'm saying that you don't understand the Trinity. And because you don't understand the Trinity, you have a ridiculous belief that says because I don't understand it,
here's something
it's true. It's ridiculous.
Guys. Here's something to think about. Hold on, let me say this. Since we're talking about God, it's logical and rational that God's nature is going to be beyond human comprehension anyway. So that doesn't give us any reason not to believe in God. It just demonstrates we're talking about God, which logically is going to be incomprehensible to God, except
Thank you.
Hold
Thank
on.
you.
Except
no, I'm thanking you.
Right,
Thank you.
Brenda, please. Except for what he conveys to us about himself. And he has conveyed much about himself in his inspired word. So we can understand the concept of God, though, without having, him go beyond our understanding. It's not illogical that an all-powerful entity could exist since we examine the world around us. However, being able to know for sure the very nature of God so we can understand how he's Father, Holy Spirit, and Son, we don't expect God to be able to fit into our little box. That's all there is to that.
Well, I am justified in rejecting the Holy Trinity on the grounds, as you have admitted here, that it leads to a logical contradiction.
No, it doesn't, Brenda. Brenda, you don't even know what the Trinity is. See, here's the thing. Would it be smart for me, G-Man, to get on YouTube and make a video saying, guys, I don't understand evolution, therefore it's not true? If I made a video like that, you'll all be laughing at me, right? But you get on YouTube, wait a minute, Brenda. But you get on YouTube, Brenda, and you say, because I don't understand the Holy Trinity, the Holy Trinity can't make any sense, and it can't be true.
So
here's the thing, Brenda. That's how you sound, Brenda, when you say that.
Okay, guys, let me explain something for a minute, please. Brenda, I'll explain to you why I want to take just a moment. I won't. I'll try not to be long. I really will. I'm going to explain to you why the God of the Bible is the only logically possible God. Well, there could be no other God but Jesus Christ. Jesus Christ must be God, and God of the Bible is the only logically possible God. Here's what it is. Right now, since when we think of God, we think naturally of an all-powerful, infinite, maximal being, a being that is perfect. Not just kind of really great, not really, 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 really great, but maximally great, all powerful, all knowledge, all wisdom, all infinite in scope, temporally infinite, has always been, is outside of time, will always be a maximal being, not a semi-maximal.
Yeah.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
So
Mega Superman.
so that is our concept of God. Naturally, we lean towards that. Now, so if that's in fact what God is, and that's what I think is logical, now we have to consider we're infinitely inferior to Him. Excuse me, I've got a chest cold. We're infinitely inferior to Him in every way, including morally inferior. Now, so if God is a maximal being, and He set the standard for us as to what to achieve in order to be in His grace, He wouldn't set it way down there somewhere arbitrarily and say, you have to find it. No, He wouldn't. The character of God Himself would be the standard. His perfection is the standard, okay, by which He measures everything, right? Now, the God of the Bible has said that He will not punish one for the sin of another. In other words, he said that at least 3 times in the Old Testament.
So no original sin.
Hold on, and throughout the Bible,
sin?
the scriptures say that God comes to give to each according to their own works, not to punish one guy for the sins of another guy. Because that would be, let me give you an analogy. A man goes before a human judge, and the judge says, you've been found guilty by a jury of your peers of robbery. But tell you what, bailiff, bring me that stringy-haired fellow on the 3rd row over there. He's going to go to prison, and you get to go free. Is that justice? No, that's not justice. That's immoral. God cannot do that either. So, God must punish you. They must punish the one who's guilty. Now, here's the problem: if a man comes before a human judge, and the judge says you've been found by a jury of your peers to be guilty, forget about it. Just go free. I like you. I'm in a good mood. I got a bottle of wine and a honey waiting on me at home. Just go home. Don't worry about it. Is that just? No, that's unjust. Because the judge is unjust because he has not levied a penalty for a crime. Now, God is no different. God is more moral than men. He can't let a crime go unpunished. Now, here's the conundrum we're in. The penalty is death, according to God. It's destruction, is what He says. The wages of sin is death, but the gift of life is eternal. Gift of God is eternal life through Jesus Christ. Somebody gets a death sentence. Somebody else gets a life sentence. Okay, so the penalty is destruction. Now, we'll just use the word death. Okay, so now, how is God going to save?
What does this have to do with the Trinity? What does this have to do with the Trinity?
You'll understand. Give me a moment. So God must exert penalty. He has to. But if He penalizes you for your sin, you get destroyed. He can't save you. He can't save that which He has destroyed. So how does He do it? Well, He's already said, because He's just, He's not going to punish one for the sin of another. Jesus Christ, then, can't be just a mortal man. Because if He were, God has put the sins of the world on one man who didn't deserve it. God has taken one unlucky sucker. He has reached down into His creation and grabbed some guy, the most unlucky sucker in the history of the universe, by the nape of his shirt, and drag him along and say, come on with me, sport. You're the most unluckiest dude that was ever born. Boy, are you going to wish you were never born. God can't do that. He's punishing somebody for somebody else's crimes. So here's the thing. If He exerts penalty, and He must because He's just, He can't say go free. You have to destroy you. You can't be saved. If He punishes, He can't punish somebody else for your sins because that's unjust. So He can't do that. He has to exert justice. He can't put it on you because if He does, you destroy you. He can't punish anybody else for your crimes. That's unjust to them. There's only one solution. God Himself has to become a man. and take the penalty for your crime on himself. That way, he doesn't get rid of the standard, which is perfection himself. He doesn't not exert justice for every crime. He exerts justice for every sin, and he gets to save you from being destroyed, and you live. That's why we know Christ must be God, and there is a Trinity, because there is no logical way God can forgive sin if he is a maximal being, unless he becomes a man and takes your penalty upon himself.
Yeah, there was no demonstration in that, but I am glad
Yes,
that you reject. I'm glad that you reject original sin.
So I just explained why Christ must be God, why there has to be a Trinity,
you didn't.
And why God is, why Christianity is the only logical religion in the world with a holy maximal being. Because religions of the world like Islam, they have a God that just, because you kiss up to him enough, he says, okay, you're good. Don't worry about your sin. Forget it.
I
just forget.
So everything you said had nothing to do with the Holy Trinity.
So
everything you said was just preaching. It was not a logical argument. It was not a logical argument.
For this reason, yes, it is. For this reason, we know that religions like Islam can't be true because they don't have a holy God in them. They don't have. They have. They're not Christian.
They can't be true because it's not Christianity.
No,
I get it.
They have an unholy God.
Let me respond real quick. Now
they have an unholy God, God which will forgive sin without exerting justice. He can't be a maximal being. He's an unholy God. There's no religion in the world that has a maximal being that is perfectly just except Christianity, and has a solution for man's sin problem except Christianity, and it depends. It is dependent upon the fact that God became flesh to take the penalty for our sin himself.
Okay, so Brendan brought up something about predicting thoughts. I'm going to respond to that real quick. Now, these are arbitrary thoughts. Now, I have a paper that shows that deliberate thoughts cannot be predicted. And this is from Mao's, Yaff, Koch, and Murderick. So I can show you that paper, Brenda. So you misrepresented there what's going on there. So I had to bring that up.
Yeah, I don't know the paper you're talking about. The last time you sent me a paper, it contradicted everything you had said.
How? I mean, what do you mean?
I don't recall. It was quite some time ago. It was several months ago. We had a talk. You referenced a paper and you emailed it to me, and then I read the paper and it contradicted everything you'd said. So you have a tendency to cite papers that don't support your arguments.
How could you even say such a thing?
I'm sorry, what?
If you say I misrepresent the paper, you don't even know the paper, then why are you saying that? I mean, you got to show evidence of what you say.
Yeah, it was several months ago. I don't recall the details of the paper.
Yeah, but you're making claims, though. At least
I can
justify it somehow.
I can do that. I have a memory.
Okay.
It isn't a perfect photographic memory. I can't sit here and just remember the words of the paper.
No, you can remember the paper though. Just give me the title of the paper that I misrepresented.
Well,
show me where I misrepresented it.
I'm just saying that you have a history, like lots of people.
But demonstrate it though. Just stop telling people
of citing of. Well, where's the citation? Oh, here it is. Okie dokie.
So I don't know what to tell you, Brenda. Maybe start, trying to work with us instead of against us, and because we're not out to be dishonest a-holes like you present us to be. We're trying to be honest and give you real knowledge and truth and facts.
Well, you've demonstrated repeatedly that you're very dishonest, Praise.
Oh dear, let's not reduce this conversation to that.
Right.
Okay, do you have a response to the Trinity? Let's get back to the topic instead of the segue that we had. Do you have responses, Praise? I'm
not even a Trinitarian, so I mean, my position.
You deny the Trinity?
Yes.
You deny the Trinity?
Yes, I do.
Oh, that's interesting. That's interesting.
And to me, it's semantical, and it's not dependent on salvation, so I don't make a big deal out of it. But I'm a oneness, so that's my position.
So you think that there are three gods?
No.
Well, who's God then?
I believe there's only one God, the Father, who he manifested himself in two different forms of existence. So outside the incarnation, he's the Father. And inside the incarnation, he's the Son. So he's two forms. So you have a human nature, then you would have his divine nature in one person.
Yeah. Yeah, that's Sabellianism. That's Sabellianism.
You know, I'll say this about beliefs like that.
of.
Let me say this. Beliefs like that. You know, the reason that Christians there are Christians that disagree with each other about what exactly the Trinity is and how we can know is just because God is outside our box. That's all.
I agree.
We're only humans trying to reason away what God has revealed about himself, that he is Father, Holy Spirit, and Son. That's all we're trying to do. Jesus Christ said, when you pray, pray in this way. Our Father who art in heaven, etc., etc. He said, in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Pray in this way. Jesus told us to pray to himself. He said, to the Father, the Holy Spirit, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit.
Well, that's not inconsistent with praises, Sabellian heresy.
So I mean, there's only one place you can go with that. Either Jesus Christ knows exactly what he's talking about, or he's an absolute he's a rubber room lunatic.
Actually, that's consistent. That's consistent with Praise's heretical view and with the more traditional view.
Sabellianism posits that the Father is the Son on the earth.
That's what you said.
Don't say
that's
that.
What you said.
No, I said he's two different forms of existence. I'd said outside the incarnation, he's the Father. Inside the incarnation, he's the Son. But he's not the Father, though, inside the incarnation. So that's false.
No, but Jesus said that I and the Father are one.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so that contradicts what you just said just now.
The only reason we
They're
find
one
contradiction,
person, but that doesn't mean that they're both the Father.
So it is a contradiction.
Wait, here's the thing. Let's just, you know what? Let's move on to another topic.
Right. I mean, this
the
is
point
just,
I've we are going you on the Trinity.
No, you haven't done anything.
Where praise denies, praise outright denies.
Brenda, you haven't done any such thing.
Throughout most of Christian history, praise would be burned at the stake.
Now, Brenda, let me just ask you a question. I'll demonstrate that you're wrong when you say you've refuted us of anything. Is God outside of our box? Is man able to fully comprehend God? If God existed, as the Christians describe him, as a maximal being, would he not be outside of our box and man would be just at a loss to fully describe and comprehend God? Would that not be true?
I can comprehend the logical
could you answer my question, please?
I can comprehend the logical entailments of claims made about your hypothetical God. So yes, I can comprehend infinity. Yes.
That didn't answer my question. If God of the Bible is, as the scriptures say he is, a maximal, all-powerful, infinite being, isn't it true that an entity of that sort would be outside of our box and man would be at a loss to fully describe him?
No. You just did. You just did describe him as a maximally great being. So yes, I can comprehend that.
Okay, describe to comprehend. I say to comprehend God, to fully.
I did.
Would
I just
man
did.
be able to fully comprehend God if he is God?
I just did. He's a maximally
now you're being
great being.
You're being disingenuous.
That's a description.
No, I'm not.
Yeah,
that's giving a description. That's not.
That's what descriptions do. Is lead you to comprehension. If I describe something, I can comprehend it. Yes,
the ontology of God. You don't know the ontology of God. That's impossible.
That's ridiculous. Let me explain one reason.
That's what I said. I can comprehend God because you describe him as a maximally great being. Yes,
Brenda,
I can comprehend that.
What's maximally greatness then? Tell me what maximally greatness is. Explain that.
Able to do anything except for the logic. Anything that's not logically leads to a logical contradiction.
Brenda, one of the things that demonstrates you're just being disingenuous is this: no human being can actually fit into their mind the concept of a billion years. You have to trace.
I just did.
No, you can't.
You just did.
Brenda,
you just said a billion years.
For a person to comprehend, but not describe, a billion years, they have to begin a mental process of thinking about millions of years and then millions of years beyond that and millions of years behind that. It's a mental process to try to comprehend it. But this demonstrates that distance is so great that it turns into a blur for a human mind.
That's not true.
Humans cannot.
You understand a billion years just as easily as I did. You just described it. You just described it.
No, humans cannot comprehend the idea of a billion years.
No.
We can
you just
conceive
described
of it.
A billion years.
No,
you just described it just now.
We can conceive of it. We cannot We cannot
That's
conceptually
yes.
understand.
Brenda's
That's
confusing
understanding it.
descriptions with ontology.
That's
There's a
right.
difference.
That's right. So
The
it's
billion
logical.
years doesn't have an ontology. What are you talking about?
Brenda,
Of course it does.
it's
No, it
logical.
doesn't.
that
Billion
human
yearsness.
beings-
Tell me what
No, it
billion yearsness is. What is that like? Tell me what the nature
It's
of
a
that
number.
is.
It's a number. It's a finite number.
Brenda, I'm just gonna look. I want
It's
everybody
a
to be quiet for
finite
just
number.
a moment. I want to point something out real quick. Brenda, you're being disingenuous when you say that
No, I'm
human
not.
beings.